If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
You guys are in for a treat.
Kind of a
in this episode.
Whirlwind.
It was.
We go left, then we go right.
We zig, we zag.
Yeah,
it was a good one. Jordan Shallow, one of our good friends, the extremely knowledgeable, technical, powerlifting and movement wizard. This guy is. I've called him Beast before, but I don't mean he's a beast because he's a big dude, although he is. He is Beast from X-Men. He's the blue monster guy who's really strong, but then is super smart. So it's this weird combination.
To the point that we are going to have to write a guide for some people post-show on how to figure out what half the stuff he says sometimes is. I always tease him about every time he comes on the show. But you know what? We actually touched on this in the podcast. You know, his goal really is to educate the educators. So, you know,
perfect.
Even though I'm teasing him, then that is the right vocabulary to use for the people that he's speaking to. He's not admitting that I'm trying to reach the masses or the average Jane or Joe who's listening. I'm trying to school the people out there that
teach the teachers.
Right.
And you know, what do we talk about in this? Well, we go into his travels. We talk about him and Ben Pekulski. Those are funny stories. He tells some funny stories there. What they teach each other. Because, of course, Pekulski's this super smart, educated bodybuilder.
Right.
Jordan
And they don't
Shallow.
agree on everything.
They don't.
Which I thought is fantastic.
They don't. And so that was really cool. And then we talk about some of his personal stuff. He's going through some difficult times right now. So it gets, pretty deep there. And then we get on the phone with one of our friends, nice little surprise in the episode. And then the
turns real spicy real quick.
About 4 days ago, Ben Greenfield had dropped a tweet about vaccines and super controversial. And I sent a message saying, I got to get you on the podcast and ask a few questions, mainly, what the fuck were you thinking, to say a statement like that. And so we had him on the show, and just briefly we called him and let him explain a little bit, and then hung up. And to be honest, as good as this entire episode is, it became fire after that, because then
it was like charged.
Right. Well, then Shallow put kind of his 2 cents in, and then we went down a little bit of the political rabbit hole. But what's nice, and I think that hopefully people that are listening will appreciate, is that Shallow and us don't agree on a lot of things politically. So you can hear a really intelligent debate about some things that are I think a little third rail-esque.
Yeah, it was fun though.
That was great.
I don't mind talking to people who disagree with me at all, as long as they can make good, intelligent arguments, and it's not like insulting each other. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to learn more and understand each other more, and then we have a lot of fun with it too. And Jordan's he's a great sport. He's very outspoken, honest, incredible integrity, and we all just respect each other. So that part was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, he's got a great podcast. He gets deep into fitness and movement, but he's also a funny guy. You got to check it out. It's called RX Radio. So that's RX''D Radio. Great podcast. Of course, on Instagram, he's got a great Instagram page. It's at The Muscle Doc, and there's an underscore in between the and muscle and doc. And then his website is pre-script.com. So make sure you go check it out. The guy he's one of the few people that we really, really, really trust in this industry of fitness. So he's got great stuff. Go check him out. Also, before we start the episode, I want to tell everybody, MAPS Performance, our functional-based, athletic-based training program, is 50% off. All month long, it's half off. You just got to go to mapsfitnessproducts.com and use the code GREEN50, GREEN50. Now remember, this program was designed with movement in mind. So we're thinking, okay, who are we training with this program? We're training somebody that wants to move and look like a well-balanced athlete. So, picture that in your mind. What do they look like? They have an aesthetic, balanced physique, and they can move. They can move in different planes. They can move quickly. They have lots of strength, lots of power, and lots of stamina. You get all of those aspects of physical performance with MAPS Performance. Again, it's mapsfitnessproducts.com, and the code is GREEN50 for 50% off. And also, we have other MAPS programs on that site, so you can find one that suits your goals, your needs, and your fitness history. So here we go. Here we are talking to our good friend, Dr. Jordan Shallow.
Yeah.
We had John Brinkus, who you probably won't recognize the name because I didn't. This is so great. I love when this happens where we agree to an interview because we see that they have enough, social presence. They have a TED Talk or something compelling we can talk to. And he had a very compelling argument. So this guy has a TED Talk, and it's about why men and women should not be separated in sports at early age. And I thought, this is a really compelling argument. And we were looking forward to debating this. And then I realized when I look him up, oh shit, this is the dude that's hosted and is responsible
for 6 Emmys
for the Sports Science show.
Cool. Yeah,
I love that show.
That was great.
I love that show.
I wish that was still around.
Right. So he was great, dude. Yeah. Absolutely great interview. And a really compelling argument why we shouldn't separate boys and girls, especially at a young age, and that we should just allow it to naturally happen.
And he wasn't making the case necessarily that it's going to be at the top level equal representation. He wasn't making that case at all. In fact, he said more like, at those levels, sure, you're probably in a lot of sports going to see a lot of male domination, but at the younger levels and the younger ages, you're not going to see that so much. And, it may cause a lot of rising, girls to compete at higher levels and harder levels to improve their performance. And he used the example of like the WNBA and how much better they are today than they were when they first came out and some of the performance in other sports. So, if we're going to go down that road, I said, sure, that makes sense. Then if people aren't going to be angry that there's going to be, no women in the NFL, but at the lower levels, we'll see more representation. But I honestly don't think anybody would want that. But he did make a good case. It's a really good
if you think about it, there's a kid I grew up playing hockey with. At the age of 14, he was 6'7". His name was Sean Ducharme. And when I was 16 years old with a slap shot through my blocker, he broke 2 bones in my hand.
Holy shit.
Now, how is it fair? He was a man playing against boys. I was 5'1", 160 pounds, and I'm looking down the barrel of this fucking gun 4 times a week. But it's it kind of makes sense of just think of the gradation of size and skill. Mm-hmm. Don't look at gender at that age, because we had a girl play on our team until she was 16.
Right.
Because up till that point, we were all
kind of
tiny.
Equal,
yeah.
Right.
And then the Sean Ducharmes of the world blew up to be 6'7". Then it was okay.
And
then there's a filtering process.
And the compelling argument that he makes is that we're telling girls that they're basically not good enough at such a young age, when technically some of them really are. I mean, at the ages of 7, there's probably a lot of girls that are as good or better than a lot of boys at soccer.
Fastest kid in my school when I was in elementary school was a girl.
Well, what happens is, I think this is in a Gladwell book. It might be Outliers, where they talk about people who are born earlier in the year being higher performers because they 12 months at certain ages when you're developing is a huge difference in size. And then it's not necessarily the development in size; it's the availability and access to better coaching to help breed that potential.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's if you think about it, the female, if they're not getting the same level of coaching, aren't going to rise to the same level just from a nurture standpoint, regardless of the nature component.
And he also brought up some really cool, think of fucking darts or even golf. He's like, if you take the best golfing women and the best golfing and you compare their drives, they're almost all exactly the same. The top 10,
longest one was only 40 yards or something.
It was so tiny. There and there's girls that are better than 5 of the top guys.
It's got to go. I honestly think that would be less popular among women than even among men, because I honestly think, especially in college at the high levels in certain sports, they would limit their access to scholarships as a result, because.
Either not necessarily.
And I don't think people will be happy because look, there's police departments and the military and fire departments that have different standards, and you eliminate all that. The best humans for the job.
Right.
Well, you see what the football league is doing right now. Did you watch? I didn't watch it yet. So it was last weekend. To your point, Sal, when I was going to debate a little bit with you, is that what it would do is you would just have the best of the best, and then there would be a feeder league for all sports.
Yeah.
So it would be, you're male or female, doesn't matter. If you're that badass, you make it to professional NFL, you make it to professional NBA or whatever. And then if you didn't, then you would fall short in these feeder leagues, and you could potentially have 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to necessarily be just 2 of them. And we're actually seeing this happening right now in the NFL. It's not the NFL's actual. They're supplying the coaches. They're promoting it on NFL Network. I can't think of the name of it. Maybe Doug can look it up.
I know. I've actually seen.
It just went live last weekend, and it's basically the G League, like in basketball, for football. And football's had the Canadian League. They've had UFL or whatever like that in the past, but never has it been associated looking with the NFL. Right. And this has got.
So the Canadian League, and compared to the NFL, they're like. How many levels down would you say?
Oh, man. Well, it's a different game, man.
Is it really?
Yeah, like there's one less down. The whole game's played.
Really? I did not know that.
It's 3 downs, 110 yards. AAF starting quarterbacks.
New alliance.
Interesting. I was a big fan of the XFL, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
That was
just because of the made up names.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like WWE meets like Thursday Night Football.
No, there was rumors again that they were going to try and make it happen again too. I mean, I think this is going to be great. I mean, I heard I didn't get a chance to watch it personally myself. I heard nothing but positive things from it. But this is what my point of even bringing this up was to Sal is that, you know, you think that it would kill it, but no, it wouldn't. It would actually open it for like leagues like this, where it's just you didn't quite make it to the NFL.
You did get a Kurt Warner, from the Canadian League, and so I think that was like a lot of the basis of what the argument was to have this under league was like, well, we can develop and foster more talent, and they get more time under their belt, and then we could bring them into the league.
Right. I think he came from arena football.
Yeah.
But
Arena,
same idea.
Yeah,
though. I get what you're saying.
So Jordan, I want to hear about your travels. You've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Where have you been? What's been going on? What's the deal?
I feel like I left in August, and I just touched down like 2 days ago, and then I leave next Sunday, and then I'm gone till like August. Again.
Where have is it all been? I heard you talking about Australia. Has it all been there, or have you been other places?
So I started off in I started off in Toronto. What was I doing in Toronto? I spoke at Swiss. So that was every 2 years it gets put on. Huge honor to be included in that. Just real long form. There was Thibodeau, Meadows, Scott Stevenson. I think there was 30 of us, and it was a 3-4 day event held in Mississauga. So that was my first one. Then I did a private seminar in Toronto. I was in Lebanon in December.
What was that like?
Insane. Have you guys been to the Middle East?
No.
Okay, Lebanon's like Middle East light. Like it's crazy. Like
what does that mean?
It means so when Lebanon is like
you can see cheeks, not just eyes. Or
wow.
And that's it for today's episode. So you can go. There's this place called Our Lady of Lebanon. It's a statue of the Virgin Mary at like the top of the highest peak in Lebanon, and you can literally see like the entire country. Like you can't fathom how small this country is. It's not like I was in Beirut, but you can see from this peak, like you can see Beirut, you can see I think Tripoli is. No, that's not right. Is that right?
Don't look at me, bro.
So like there was this.
He looked at me. I'm like, I'm geographically retarded, bro. It's like I'm the guy who thought that getting to Jamaica was going to take me 15 hours. I remember the first time.
Bless your heart. So that's it. There's like a spiral staircase. You can walk all the way up, and literally you can see the Mediterranean. So there's this weird sort of like Lion King moment that happened, where like these two dudes brought me up, like super nice kids. They were kind of like chauffeuring me around the whole time. And so remember in Lion King, we're at the top of the rock and they're like looking, and then they're just like everything the sun touches is yours. So it was kind of that moment. I'm like, what's over there in the dark? And it's like, that's Syria. Like you don't go over there. You don't go over to Syria. But it was fun, like a very thin first world veneer. Like Martyr Square, which is not an enticing name by any stretch of the imagination, but there's like Hublot, there's Maserati, there's Prada, Gucci, and then there's like mortar shells from like 30 years ago. Like it's really like there's a very thin veneer of the first world, and like you're driving like
now. Is Lebanon a Christian country in the Middle East, or are they a predominantly Muslim, or both?
Both, and like it's surprisingly harmonious. Like there's just outside Martyr Square, there's actually one. I think it's the second largest mosque in the world. That's it there with the blue roof.
Interesting. And
then across the street there was like a 80-foot Christmas tree. And then like, so it's fairly harmonious, but it's interesting because there's two major, I felt like Anthony Bourdain, like a strong Anthony Bourdain while I was there. I wish I would have recorded the whole thing. But so like you would drive through like Hezbollah checkpoints, which is like.
Wait a minute, say what?
Hezbollah? Like
I know who they are.
Yeah.
You actually have to drive through their checkpoints?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, no, and like I was freaking the fuck out. But it's a weird kind of like, you know,
Yeah, because you don't look.
yeah,
You look about as Western as it gets.
I immediately stood out. And it's kind of like a hostile culture, like not necessarily aggressive, but like everyone's sort of narrow browed. Like people know you're not from there. I had never felt more out of place in my entire life.
You getting funny looks and shit?
Yeah, like, but like not funny, like go to Tokyo and everyone's like, oh, like not, but like kind of like, what the fuck are you, what are you doing here, man? Like Germany's that way sort of thing.
Okay.
It was really strange. But there's a weird sort of relationship because Syria is predominantly ISIS. Now I'm going to mess this up, but one of the Hezbollah is either Sunni or Shia, and then ISIS is the other. So as much as, you know, Christianity and Muslims might have their problems, or Christians and Muslims might have their problems, within the infighting between those two Muslim groups, the Hezbollah hate the ISIS more than they hate the Christians. So Christians sort of just like fly under the radar of this, like, and just try not to get caught up in the crossfire. Yeah. So like, I mean, we're pulling up to the checkpoint, camouflage M16s, and I'm sweating. I'm what the fuck did I get myself into? It's like, I could talk about hip stability anywhere in the fucking world, and these guys got M16s. Why am I here right now? And they're like, no, man, like, it's totally cool. Like, you're not ISIS, are you? I was like, no. I was like, then you're fine. And so it was a weird sort of like, you know, the bird that eats out of the alligator's mouth?
Yeah, like that was you.
Yeah, well, it was just like, it was great visual. Really strange, but like the most.
What are they asking you questions and stuff? Or are they like, hey,
no, they just kind of like peer in the car.
Okay.
Now, are you rolling solo at this point? Or are you with Ben?
No, this is just me.
This is just you solo by.
So what made you go to Lebanon then? Did you get a phone call from someone and say,
I coached a guy online who played for their national rugby team in the World Cup. So I did his programming. He was, he played for the World Cup rugby team in Lebanon.
So they invited you over, paid for everything, and said, hey, we want you to talk to, who'd you talk to, the team?
Spoke with the rugby team, and then there was a private powerlifting facility in Beirut that had me out as well.
How did the facility look over there?
It was unbelievable.
Really?
It was one of like the most well outfitted. It was like boutique style powerlifting gym. It was fucking dope, man. It was really. Beirut is a cool city.
Doesn't it trip you out when you go to a place like that and you wonder why we're in a Bay Area? Why the fuck do we not have cool places like that here?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, they got it right over there.
We have so much money. You would think that we would have a facility like that. I've always thought that was strange. I've been to like small towns, like in fucking Reno, that have gyms that are shit on anything we have over here.
Oh yeah, American Iron Gym in Reno. It's one of the baddest gyms in the country.
Right. And I get it. The real estate's a lot cheaper, so I kind of understand that part. But you would think by now that someone in San Jose would have built like this.
Market doesn't support it.
No, they just want Soul Cycle here. You know what I mean?
I love the Peloton bike commercials that are going out. It's like, just go the fuck outside. There's a window. It's right there.
Oh, yeah. You need to make believe an environment now.
They're blowing up.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, my God. It's just, you're literally reselling the wheel. Good on you.
I wonder if it's going to, you think it'll be a trend, it'll die eventually, or do you think they're a smart enough company that'll be able to keep going?
No. It's fashion, man. It comes in waves. Like, this is not the first time this has happened, right?
Right.
Like, they had that one thing where you could, like, put your actual stationary bike like on rollers or some shit. It's like, just go the fuck outside. But I think it'll fall in and out of favor, and then it's just sort of on to the next thing, and then in 20 years it'll cycle back.
So after Lebanon, then you go. At what point do you and Ben hook up, and then you guys do your little tour? How much did you tour before that?
Never.
No, I mean like this whole trip that you did.
So I got back from Lebanon, and then did I go right to Tampa? Yeah, so I was in New York before that. I was at Kenny Santucci's gym in Manhattan.
Oh, how's he? Have you ever met him? That was the first time?
First time. So I was in Australia. I was in Port Douglas, Australia, and it was like, I don't know, 2 p.m. I like go on Instagram, and anyone with like what is the deal with the blue check mark on Instagram? It's like this
status
elusive
thing.
It means you're officially you.
Yeah.
Did you get one?
No, but so like Kenny started like following me, and then he messaged me right away, and like within like 2 hours I was booked to do Strong New York, which is a seminar series that he put on. So I went there first, and then Lebanon. So it was New York, it was Bay Area, New York, UK, Lebanon, UK, New York, Tampa. And then me and Ben got together towards the middle of December, end of December, and sort of planned out all of January. Yeah. So we were in Australia from the 6th of January to the 23rd, 24th. And we did Sydney, Perth, and Melbourne.
Now, was there a lot of communication between you and him beforehand on like, because you guys are, it's different with us, right? We have been working together for a long time. And so when we do seminars or do things, there's a very smooth flow of who talks, who does what, and we just kind of whatever. Now, you and Ben have not really done that until this. So did you guys agree, like, hey, you're going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about that, or did you just go? Like, how did you guys decide all that?
Yeah, I think like the format of it was something that it actually triggered the idea that, hey, this would be really cool. Because like we would work out. I mean, I think you connected me with him like a year ago. Mm-hmm. It was really strange. And I went out and did his podcast when I was in Miami. I took a day up to Tampa. And then I flew out again like 2 weeks later and trained with him for a week. And all of our workouts turned into like these PhD level dissertations because we just come at it from two totally different angles, two totally different objectives.
Oh,
right?
wow. So was there a little bit of debating at the beginning when you guys first
this is interesting.
Every day of our lives, there's debate.
Wow.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing, right? Like that's what we're selling a thought process, right? And we're very clear that like we are ends of a spectrum. I respect and understand his outlook. I'm going to show you his pitfalls and where this goes wrong and who this shouldn't be applied to and whatever. And he does the same thing with me.
That's cool, man.
Because we'll like tangent and we think like when we like the dust settles and we realize there's 45 other people in the room that like, oh shit, we just had our own little side conversation as people paid for it. But people are like, no, like that's the best part,
right? Yeah.
So it's just like, because it's, I don't know, it's cool to have someone to check you on your shit, right? Like, and I think that's the hard part with like trying to continue to learn is like, you get to a certain point and whether the authority is warranted or not, if you're the guy at the front of the room, people are listening, right? And like most people are respectful and they assume because you have the microphone clipped to your shirt that you know what the fuck you're talking about. And I'm like very adamant from the gate, like push, like, and because that's why I present. It's like I present to learn. Like I will travel the world for one really good question that makes me think. And traveling with Ben is like these no holds barred. And it's not like, it's more of just like a childlike inquisition rather than like putting someone on trial.
Right.
So like we just work out, like I learned more about my like field or topic of like applied biomechanics in 3 weeks, just like, because we would debrief after every seminar.
Discussion and debate is one of the best ways to think, I think, and to process your own thoughts. And really to paint the picture for the audience, you have Ben Pekulski, pro bodybuilder, but he also has a background in human movement. Of course, your background and your power lifter, so you're like a movement guy. He's a feel muscles kind of guy, hypertrophy versus strength, performance versus aesthetics. And I'm oversimplifying, I know this, but you're also both very, very smart dudes. And so coming from those two sides, like give me an example of an area of debate where you guys would like debate over something and then maybe what turned out or who was right.
It's all context, right? Like, so I think we're both right, which was like an interesting thing to bring to an audience because a lot of times like there's an industry for this now, right? And the only way you can sell a 3-letter acronym seminar is that if you're fucking, your 90-90 position will cure fucking knee cancer or whatever. But you have to be steadfast.
Always going to 90-90.
Well, it's the easiest, most widely perpetuated.
Leave my 90-90 alone,
Come
you
on,
asshole.
man. We invited you on the show.
Orthogonal bullshit. But like, no, it's the most perpetuated thing that people can cling to where it's like, I want to give you, I start every seminar. It's like, I don't want to give you all the answers. I want to give you the ability to ask better questions. Right. And that's the goal. Because it's like, but that's a hard thing to sell because people want, what alleviates stress is authority. They want to know that what you're telling them is like the process. And it's like, no. Like I will like gift you the process of learning how to learn contextually based off the situation you're in. So to double back to your question, like, yeah, like you said, I'm integration, I'm function, I'm strength. He's isolation, he's muscle action, he's hypertrophy, right? So it's like the debates would almost be like looking for clarification. Like things about like resistance profiles versus strength curves. Like that was something we debated, like his idea with challenging muscle through a full range. Like you can't do that in a full machine, like in one machine. Like if there's a cam on a bicep curl that's going to overload the end range or it's going to overload the fully shortened. Like one of the debates we had was like, okay, he likes to overload the end range first and then overload the fully shortened second. I think it should be the other way around. And it's like, neither of us are wrong.
Hold on. That's a great discussion. So, and to simplify it for the audience, when you fully extend your arm, applying more resistance at that part of a curl would be the end range. And when you fully contract your arm or squeeze like you're flexing your bicep, adding a lot more resistance there would be overloading the shortened range. And so you're saying at the beginning of the workout, it's better to start shortened with the overload and then move towards the lengthen. He's saying the opposite. Now, why? Why are you guys so different on that? What's your argument?
So, I mean, to really put a fine point on it, think of like an incline bicep curl and think of like a spider curl.
Right.
Incline bicep curl is going to be hard at the initiation. Spider curl is going to be hard at the end. It's like there's no, like, I don't want to limit my ability to get to the active range where I'm trying to shorten it, right? So it's like if there's no tension in the beginning of a spider curl and it's all at the end, then I can save that for after the fact. Where if I do the spider curl first and then I get through that range and I'm already fatigued, then I can't initiate as well as I could have if the order was reversed. And then he says that's the point.
Because you're saying that the shortened range, you're going to be stronger anyway. So start there and save the...
Well, not even that, because the mid-range is always going to be your strongest position.
Right.
So it's like being able to gain momentum. And I think the fundamental difference that we always boil down to is his outlook is purposeful inefficiency, where my outlook from a strength standpoint is always being as efficient as possible, right? Like, I don't want distance created in my squat. I want to be that bar should just be a straight line in my deadlift, because any deviation is going to be by definition inefficient. But in muscle building, inefficiency is what you're going for. He's a very like less is more kind of thing. Like you do a workout with him and
he's trying to make it harder.
Yeah. Like you can literally be killing yourself with this guy, because he'll go time, distance, load. Like that's how he progresses like the magnitude of a stimulus. So time, distance, barely anyone gets to the point where they're not lifting pink dumbbells. They're not fucking increasing load. So I think when we boil it down to the essence of a lot of the debates we had, it was like, okay, you're just trying to be wildly inefficient. So you don't need to load a lot of weight to create a lot of stimulus.
He's trying to make it harder. Bodybuilders do that. They'll do it. They'll lift a weight and try to make 100 pounds feel like 300 pounds through the way the muscles are
Which
functioning.
when you're building a physique and you're sculpting a body, there's good weight to that. That makes sense, because you are trying to work a very specific spot, and you would rather do lighter, focused on control intensity than you would load, where you may risk allowing other muscles to kick in to help that movement, right? And that's where the performance guy comes in and argues and says, well, I could see you saying, oh, well, you add more load, then you're going to get more CNS adaptation, you're going to get more overall muscle gain.
Fibers more
activated. Gain, and then you'll be able to add more load later, which in turn will build more muscle. So this is something we debate on the show. I mean, I was the bodybuilder aesthetic guy, and I can relate more to this is how I found Ben, and I liked him so much. I was like, he's the first smart bodybuilder guy that what he's talking about is the right way to talk about it. And I know you talk more like how Justin talks, or like where he leans as far as training.
Yeah, the efficiency, and like treating it as a skill more than anything else. So
here's the thing: in the middle of how many variables, because this is what we developed, and by the time we got to Melbourne, we sort of had it hashed out, where it's like, okay, our biggest differentiator between us was how we stabilize joints, because training is often just looked at as an inverse relationship between volume and intensity, which puts people on a spectrum of endurance and strength. Right. So like hypertrophy ranges are higher reps for lower intensity, strength ranges are lower. But to me, like, and this is like literally the opening chapter of my book is talking all about where trinities exist, and trinities exist in places that are very complicated. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, proton, neutron, electron, executive, legislative, judicial.
Spiritual.
Well, hey, but it's just like, I don't think human performance can be summed up as just on a linear spectrum of volume and intensity.
I agree.
Way too simplified.
I think basically what we developed was like, hey, think of like a Venn diagram with 3 overlapping inputs, right? So it's like you're going to have let's call it isolation, hypertrophy, integration, strength, coordination, stability. Now, whoever your avatar is on the middle of that, in the middle of those
would dictate where you lean towards.
Exactly. But I don't think, like, even like from a hypertrophy standpoint, right? Like, I don't know how much you guys read into like Schoenfeld's work about like mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and what's the third pillar of hypertrophy?
There's
mechanical damage or muscle damage, mechanical tension, and metabolic stress, right? So it's like, if you believe in that, then, to your point earlier of like, there's a place for isolation and building body, sure. But if your rate limiter is like mechanical tension or applied force, it's like, well, you need to get stronger, right? So when Ben does that, he just affords more stability externally, right? So where I think always the internal driver is going to be a stronger adaptation, right? So if I can stabilize my shoulder to do a bicep curl and drown out like the peripheral noise to focus just on isolating that muscle by having like a super stable shoulder blade internally from the serratus, or a super stable rotator cuff from training the function of the rotator cuff rather than the action. I think that's a huge differentiation.
I think what you're saying is, now when I would train clients, I would focus a lot on what you're saying. As people get stronger and bigger and stronger and bigger, you get to a point where if you're squatting 500 pounds and you're still wanting to build more mass to your legs, it might become wiser to focus on those external factors and increase the fatigue and tension without having to add weight. And so what you end up seeing are and look, don't get me wrong, some of the best bodybuilders in the world were some of the strongest, but they also ended up with a lot of the most injuries, like Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman, Branch Warrens. These guys trained with maximal intensity and weight, and they're fucked. Then you have people like Dexter Jackson, who is still competing to this day. He's in his mid-40s, and he works out with weights that you would think somebody not even half his size should be working out with.
So the way I think both can coexist, I think the bastardization of strength in bodybuilding is missed. Are you guys familiar with, so this is like how I look at programming, and this is like a development I sort of came to in the past, or in my month in Australia with Ben, was, you guys familiar with the law of conservation of energy? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for me, I look at the body as from three hubs of stability: shoulder, hip, and spine, and like knowing function of each one. And like function is such a shitty term now, like TRX and Bosu ball and shake weight and all that shit. They've ruined it, but it fucking means something. Yeah. Like to really understand the integrative network and how these, what I call hubs of stability, meant to work in system, like in network with one another. If you can understand that and write your programming from a standpoint of the law of conservation of energy, it's like, okay, matter can never be created or destroyed, just transferred. So if I have a moment in my programming where, like, let's take a hack squat, for example, like to your point about the 500-pound squat. Yeah, like a 500-pound squat, when I'm squatting the most, my legs are the smallest. So when I have 750 on my back, I'm looking down at toothpicks. Because like the adaptation's not there. The metabolic stress, the muscle damage is just not there. I've been squatting 4 reps like in the last month and a half. It's been fucking heavy, but it's not enough to make them grow, right? So when I look at that as like, okay, when I'm squatting, if I move to a hack squat now, how am I able to load like 8 plates on hack squat and I can only load whatever for that volume on a squat? It's like, well, my pelvis is externally stabilized. I'm overriding the functional demand of the internal stability of the hip and pelvis. Right. Mm-hmm. That moment can't be destroyed. I have to then, in isolation somewhere in my program, make sure I'm still taxing the stability of the hip, the stability of the pelvis, where I don't necessarily need to do Copenhagen planks or single leg RDLs or hip airplanes if I'm squatting, because there's a system of checks and balances when you're loading on a barbell where it's like your ability
to internally stabilize to be able to
to exert force, right? Like your body will down regulate your ability to exert force. So that's
that's where you get annoyed with the 90-90s, because you have to already do that already with the squat internally.
Well, no, it's just the idea that like an arbitrary degree, especially an orthogonal right angle, like if anyone's built like a fucking pop machine, it's me. Like I look like a fucking rectangle when I walk in a room. I get that, but my joints don't articulate in 90 degrees. Like the convexity of the curvature of my rib cage allows for my neutral shoulder position looks relatively flexed to most people, like the scaption position. It's like when people do rotator cuff work, they're cranked back here because they like the idea of tight angles. It's like, yeah, if you're designing a fucking studio, sure. Right. But if you're trying to design a body, like...
Yeah, that's why I came up with a new movement. It's the 86-93.
Boom, crushing it.
Just the difference.
Let's get those angles correct.
Security by obscurity. Yeah. I love it.
So what is something that Ben has taught you? Let's start with that, because you guys are... What I like most about the two of you, I'll just talk to you, what I like about you is that you're open to discussion, you're open to debate. I think you thrive off of it, and this is the mark of an intelligent, confident individual. Sometimes you get people who have their positions. When you get into discussions and debates, they just get irritated, mad, and they avoid it, probably because they know they're either going to be exposed or they're just afraid to be wrong. You don't come across that way. You don't come across as someone who's afraid to be wrong. Neither does Ben. So I'm sure you guys learn from each other. I'm sure there's positions that you may have changed now as a result of hanging out with the guy for as long as you have? What are some of those things?
Well, I know how to buy the most expensive olive oil in the grocery store now. Like, I know how to scare the shit out of someone by meditating on the kitchen floor at 4 a.m. It's just, no, but like in all seriousness, I've learned more in the last, like in the 3 weeks we spent together in Australia than I did in 4 years of grad school.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And it's like, because we both have such a base competence. Like, he's a strong motherfucker.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. For a guy who's like, you know, a bodybuilding yogi or whatever the fuck kind of shaman shit he's on, dude, you can take the dog from the fight, but fuck, he's got something behind the eyes, man. When Benny turns up, no one can have
I remember when we first met, and I got that sense right away from him that he takes a lot of pride in being one of the hardest working bodybuilders ever to hit stage. Like,
and like even the other day, there's a guy I really admire that's coming up. His name is Jordan Peters. He's like a new age Dorian Yates, and like I've been following him for a while. And even he said the other day, who's the person that when you train with? It was like an Instagram Q&A. Who was the hardest like training partner you've ever had? And he's like, hands down, Ben Pekulski. Like, and like it's fucking, but that's what validates him to me. Like, there's such an industry for meditation and breathing and like Wim Hof and like who the fuck, like, sure, whatever. But like, I don't understand that as like an endeavor. Like, cool, you can like lay in an ice bath. Can you squat 750? No, that I don't resonate at that wavelength. But he goes, hey bitch, 750 for a triple. It's like, okay.
I'll listen to you.
Exactly.
Right,
so
and
it's
then
like,
meditates.
Yeah. So, but like, and that maybe is like where, you know, in the muscle physiology stuff, I think I put a spin on it that he doesn't necessarily, like, I look at it through a lens that he doesn't look at it through, and the same goes vice versa. But I don't think it's like, when we talk about muscle like physiology and stuff like that and apply biomechanics, it's like two magicians doing tricks on one another. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I know how you pulled that rabbit out of the hat. I see that. Yeah, like, here's a coin behind your ear. There you go. Like, you know what I mean? So but like, it's the stuff outside that I really learned from him, like how he conducts himself, like how he, like, I traveled for 3 weeks and I was just chilling, like all by myself. I'll do whatever the fuck I want when I want. Like, we lived together. And that was kind of by design to keep me well behaved. So, but like, to be able to manage the scale of the enterprise that he manages and his investments and his business partners and managing personalities of his staff and all that, and like still keeping his shit together. Like, there are people who are at the controls, and then there are people who are in control. Mm-hmm. Big Benny's in fucking control. So like, and just, I mean, things like breathing, which it seemed, and that was when we get in on some of these tangent, like not arguments, but discussions. Like, because I look at breathing from like a function standpoint, right? Like, I look at inhalation and exhalation as opposing muscle groups and keeping in balance as like a quad and a hamstring, right? Like, people don't understand, you know, your accessory muscles of forced inhalation, your accessory muscles of forced expiration, right? Like, what's the difference between the lower fiber of the serratus or the upper fiber of the serratus, or your scalenes and the role your diaphragm plays? So I'm looking at it through like a performance lens. And then he'll go a layer deeper, be like, well, all right, let's talk autonomic nervous system. Right. And it's like, that just like, I literally, like, the hair on my arm standing up right now, just talking about it. Because it's such a profound thing. Like, oh, breathe. That's like, I'm stressed out of my face, like, all day, every day. And just like little practices like that. Like, there's some stuff like the $7 sea salt and the $30 olive oil where I'm like, I'm still going to microwave my food, homie. I'm really fucking hungry. I don't care. Like, if this kills me, then I deserve to go. But like, again, like, I would have zero buy-in on some of the stuff that he's introduced me to if it was literally anyone else, because there's such a market of like, honestly, like podcasting pussies that just talk about this nonsense because that's what people want to hear rather than fucking working hard.
Well, there's an order of operation, right?
Yeah,
there really is. I mean, even like, I remember when I put also you and Greenfield together, who I think couldn't be further opposites from personalities. And I was excited about that because, one, I know both of you really well. And if there was anybody who is going to do all this weird shit, he's the guy that I would want to do it. He's the guy who, I don't want to hear it from like you said, the guy who's in the podcast fucking doesn't squat, doesn't do work, doesn't fucking track anything, and
eats shitty food.
Yeah, and then he's talking about how important blue blockers are, how important meditation is, and it's like, come on, bro. Like, there's so many other things in life that you could be applying to your life that will have so much more carryover in this mission that you're trying to accomplish. So I feel like Ben checks a lot of those basic boxes, and then he goes to the next level, and that's the guy I want to hear do it.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, man. Like, I spend a lot of time chasing people who are like passionate, and to some way this complements each other, but I want people who are fucking original now. Like, that's when I sat down with Greenfield, I was just like, this guy is a fucking space cadet. Like, he was like doing this weird like Smeagol, like from Lord of the Rings, sitting on the chair.
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's how he
just
is.
smash me with a rock. I was like, what the fuck? I was ready to just fucking, if he pounces at me, I'm gonna break his fucking jaw. Like,
Like
but,
he's eating nuts up there.
yeah, but at least he's fucking original, man. Like, especially like my field, if you want to call it, like, it's intellectual property, right? So like the stuff I come up with, like the book I wrote, it's not self-evident the conclusions I've gotten to. So like when I see people like reiterating, and who the fuck am I, right? I'm not to be an egotist about it, but like when I see it, it's like, I know, like, you were front row in my fucking seminar with a notepad. Like, this is not your idea. Like, you are one layer deep on this. So it's just like to find people who are in their own pursuit of just being original, and Ben's a fucking original. Cause like, this, like you talked about, like, you know, like, oh, red light for what inflammation, dude, from smoking fucking peyote for 4 days? Like, you're not a shaman, you're a drug addict. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Dude, that's what we're
So
seeing.
you haven't done the ayahuasca yet, then?
No,
You
the
haven't
idea
seen-
of like pharmawaska seems, but I don't want to change, man.
Neither do I.
Dude,
Hey,
I've
we're
been the
we're
same-
It's too
we're all with-
popular now for me. I
Yeah,
don't want anything
It's
to
not
do
even
with it.
that. Like, everyone I talk to is like, oh, to like change your life. Like, I'm good. I'm like, this is best life ever kind of shit. Like, why would I want to change what's going? My 3rd grade report card reads exact. Like, I've been a 65-year-old man since I was like 7 years old. It's just like,
I believe
don't-
that.
Yeah, I don't want to change. Like, I don't want to be some, like, I want to be able to respect like getting into more like mindful practice and things like that, but I want to do it on my own terms.
You have the right attitude, I think. You know, it's funny when you look at all the different spiritual practices, you get the people within them whose egos develop so large that they believe that their spiritual practice has all the answers. This has all the answers. There's nothing to learn from the other practices. And that's a very complex field. When you look at the strength sports and fitness, way more simple, way more basic, and yet just as polarized, just as egotistical. Like, I'm a power lifter, I know all the answers. I'm a bodybuilder, I have all the answers. I work with kettlebells, we have all the answers. But when you sit down and you're fucking cool and you go in to try to learn, to see what you can learn from these other people, it's incredible. So you sit down with Pekulski and you guys end up becoming better version. It doesn't completely, it's not like you're going to become a bodybuilder all of a sudden, or he's going to completely come to your side, but you're going to both grow and learn quite a bit. It's like Bruce Lee. It's like how Bruce Lee was with martial arts. You know, he's the first mixed martial artist. And now we see what that's produced in you know, like the UFC, for example.
Now, have you seen things that he's changed? Because there are things you guys don't see eye to eye. You've obviously picked up some things from him. I can imagine he's had to have picked up some things from you. What are some of the things that you think you've influenced in his life?
He eats more when I'm around. It's not just like a fucking head of cabbage. Like, he's just a giant rabbit when I'm not around. He eats like fucking 700 calories a day. He's on some weird like South Beach thing.
Bro, isn't it insane how little he eats for how massive he is?
Well, it's amazing to me because he has sort of this theory about, like, I mean, thermodynamics, energy in, energy out, right? Like, it's kind of ruled the space of at least dietetics and, you know, IFYM, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it's like, he's proof of a different concept, right? Like, energy in, nothing. Energy out, dude, we train like it's to the death, right? Like, we had a kid, like, I was about to call the ambulance in Melbourne. Like,
What?
like, we trained with this kid. Fuck, God bless. So he was like second runner up at the Amateur Olympia. He came out to our seminar at Doherty's.
and he wanted a piece.
Oh, dude, it was like one set. It was literally one set of leg press that Benny just took him past the line. Where it's like, he's just a fucking liar. Like, I don't even listen to him now. Where it's like, okay, 5 more reps. I'm like, all right, 30 more reps. Because it's just like,
He'll just keep asking.
he's just watching
your face.
But that's
that
it,
guy.
right? Like,
Oh.
100%. But like, he's just trying to get the most out of you. So like,
Right.
I've trained with him, and I mean, I've trained with a lot of bodybuilders and powerlifters, and like, I can say unequivocally that he'll go further past the fucking needle. Like, he's deranged. Like, I don't want to know what's in the dark corners of the mind that he has to fucking go to get there, because I know where I gotta go, and it's like good thing I'm sweating so much, because like, it just looks like I'm wiping away sweat and not fucking tears by the end of it. But it's just like, we had this one kid, literally, he was like, his nose started to bleed and he was throwing up everywhere. And like, after one set, like, it's
Dear
fucking
God.
crazy. But yeah, so like, his energy output is through the roof, and Ben just goes in there, like, does this weird sort of like, you know, mantra centering. He closes his eyes, and I was like, oh, man, the fuck, I'm just gonna walk away. Wait till you start, because he takes 20 seconds before every set and like does some like breathing stuff, and he closes his eyes. But it's almost like, It's it's a thing that I think about sometimes when I'm training, and it's just like this childhood infantile derangement I have. But like, remember the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk, right? But like, so they chase him through, like he's trying to control his breath and stay
right,
and they chase him through that factory, and then all of a sudden they just see the eye go green. Like when he comes out of that fucking trance state, I swear his fucking eyes go green. It's like, but no, it's like, oh yeah, because this is like, oh my god, like, yo, bro, like you got 20 seconds here, like I'm getting cold, come on, man. And then like he just like comes out of whatever part of his fucking subconscious he just went into, and you're like, oh boy, just starts throwing forklifts across the room and shit, like
just summon the darkness.
Yeah, but it's fucking like, because if you do that and then just go like do yoga or some shit, like fucking waste of time that is. You probably could do yoga without the whole breathing thing. I don't need the whole preamble. Just fucking do the downward dog, get the fuck out of here. But like to do that and then be like, okay, dude just went like 9 plates on a hack squat for reps, and we got like pro bodybuilders over here doing half of that.
Yeah,
and he's got this barefoot giant motherfucker, like, and no, it's just crazy to me to see, like, that was the biggest thing, is like when he's around, like he's probably put on in January, he probably put on like 10 pounds. Because
he's eating more
food. Yeah, because I'm like forced to do it. I'm like a Jewish mother, like, hey, wasting away to nothing. Just like, here, have some beef with your cabbage. At least eat that. Like, have a carbohydrate for once in your fucking life. But yeah, I think his changes on me much more profound than my changes on him. Like
when you guys work out together, are they bodybuilding style workouts, or are they more just who leads? Do you guys take turns leading workouts?
No, I mean, no. Who the fuck am I, man? Like I am the weakest off-season powerlifter ever. Like, I have no aspirations to kill myself, especially on the road. Like, bodybuilding style training is a little bit more conducive to, you know, sleeping on airplanes and Airbnbs and stuff like that.
That actually makes a lot of sense. That's a good question, because with all this travel, that's a lot of stress on the body, all the changing and time schedules and all that.
Yeah. So, and the opportunity though too, right? Like, you know, he didn't grow up watching me on YouTube, right? So it's just like to get a chance to learn from someone like that.
Like let him lead. You know what I'm saying?
Because like when I train, more often than not, like I'm an authority if I train with someone. Like, I'm going to take the wheel. Here's the format of the workout. If you have questions, write it down on a piece of paper. We'll get to it after, that kind of thing.
If it's ever anybody who I even think I can learn from, I like to let them drive. Yeah. But if it's someone, it's like, I know I'm not going to learn anything, I'm driving. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's that simple.
Because like we're both outcome based, or like he was very outcome based in his career. Like if someone's just kind of like a casual thing, like let me take this. And that's a lot of like, if I do train with someone around here, if it's not like my training partners at Boss, it's me sort of being instructional and taking on the role. So just to be like, here you go, man. Take the keys. Just drive this bitch into the fucking concrete going 120. So it's just like, to me, I still pinch myself. Like I'd wake up and just be like, holy fuck. Like I literally remember growing up like 2 hours down the road from this guy. Like we have a picture I'll show you after. We have a picture like when I went to the Olympia just as a fan when I first moved to California, of me and like at the expo, like flexing I was about to pass out. I was like, go take the fucking photo. I can't flex my bicep in this photo anymore. And now like 4 years later, we're like touring the world.
That's so cool. Can you remember the craziest lift that you guys have had? Like what session that one that like, oh my God.
There are a couple like legs usually, just because he's still got like these fucking Clydesdale wheels. I think one at MI40 rings a, because like he likes to train really early, and MI40 like that's his home, right? So he can control the music before he even gets in. So it's like 6 a.m. It was early on 5 a.m. It was one of the first times I trained with him, and I'm just still like in awe. And we walk into the gym. It's the first time I saw MI40. And he's got like the Russian war music training or like playing in the background, and there's only like certain lights that are on. I was like, I could kill someone right now. There's no doubt in my mind. I could 100% like, this is like some weird Braveheart shit. Like I don't ever.
He comes out of the corner, painted face.
I'd be I would follow him into battle, man. Like that one was just like, that was pretty intense, because that was just me being like a 16-year-old kid with a MD subscription, just going like, because he has some of the covers on the wall. Like I have every one of those magazines. That's a weird thing to say with one of your friends. So it was really surreal.
That's so cool, dude.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad you guys connected. You made it. I mean, I knew you would. I mean, I got a chance to get to know him really well for quite some time, and I knew you guys would definitely hit it.
Was Australia the place you spent the most time in?
So far, yeah.
They have a huge fitness culture. I mean, everybody who comes back from there keeps telling us we need to go there and do seminars or meet people.
You do. You guys just need to go everywhere. Like literally everywhere I go. I was training up at SF Fitness in Piedmont yesterday. And there was a guy there's like, hey, are you Jordan? And I was like, yeah. Like, it's so weird for me to be like, I'm just some jackass at a gym, man. Like, I'm not worthy of any commendation. Like, oh, like I heard you on Mind Pump. If I had a fucking $1 for every time I said I heard you on Mind Pump, but like, I'm back in Windsor, in fucking Lebanon, like,
No way.
dude, hand to God,
That's rad.
It's the craziest thing. Like, I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll give you context afterwards, but like, yeah, it's like the amount of reach you guys have everywhere is fucking crazy. But Australia, especially, is like. They're so, I don't know if like humble is a word, but they hold what comes out of North America in very high regard, whether it's justified or not. Where like in the States, it's a fucking nightmare. Like you can't, everyone thinks they know everything. Like that you can't sell, you couldn't sell what we sold at the level and magnitude that we sold it at on the notice that we put it together in 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And we sold out pretty much 3 dates.
You sold out every time, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
I think Perth was like a little scarce because we were back and forth on the details, but like Sydney and Melbourne were pretty much jammed.
And these are specific seminars that you're putting together. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this particular thing, and you put out what you're going to talk about, and they sign up. Or was it more like, hey, show up, listen to Jordan Shallow, Ben Pekulski?
No, it's pretty well laid out on the website. Like, so the first day is all lecture based, and that's open to a broader audience. Like, it's a lower ticket price.
Okay.
And then that was upwards of like 60, 70 people capacity. And then the next 2 days are limited access, like training camp style, where it's like, okay, we're going to go over like the fundamentals of back or chest and back. I'll talk kind of about the powerlifting movements, or no, sorry, squat deadlift were first. And then the beginning of the next day was bench press. And then we would go like leg hypertrophy in the afternoon, and then shoulders, arms in the afternoon.
Are you getting a lot of fitness enthusiasts, or are you getting a lot of like fitness professionals and people who have backgrounds and work in the field?
Yeah, more so the latter. And that's where I'm really focusing my career on now, is like, I don't want to bring this to the end user. I want to teach people how to teach people. Like, I want to have you go right
I think
to
you're
it.
picking the right.
yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course,
that's a great
that's
fit.
exactly what you're made for.
That's what you're made for.
You got to have. I mean, fuck, I have to fucking rewind and listen to stuff that you say over again. I mean, I have to go back. Well, you know what I have to do every fucking time you come on the show is I got to spend a whole another 2 hours explaining half the shit that you said on our show. People be DMing me afterwards like, man, he said something about this that sounded really important. What did he mean by this? And I got to go back and put it in layman's terms for everybody.
Yes,
So.
I mean, I really enjoy like base level competency, like teaching people who have that Rosetta Stone ability. Like, I just go straight like Rain Man on it, because like it's just I wake up in the middle of the night, I just have a whiteboard next to my bed, and I just like, this is all I think about. Like, it's not okay, but I struggle, and I know my weakness is actually bringing it to the end user. But like a lot of what I talk about comes from. It comes from maybe not like ignorance from like a malicious standpoint, but it comes from a perpetuation of misinformation,
Right.
Whether it's an inability to transfer that to the end user and explain it properly. But I think more so just from a fundamental, like a conceptual standpoint, everyone's paradigm is shifted. We're looking in the wrong direction for a lot of the stuff I talk about, which is like the difference between strength and stability, and like holding performance to a highest virtue rather than pain and things like that. So I think what I want to see is like, I don't want to have to be in practice anymore. Like it's a weird profession where like everyone you deal with every day is in pain. And I've been able to square myself kind of more in a performance aspect now. So I'll see people who aren't in pain, but they want to get like those marginal improvements past the level of diminishing return. So it's a little bit better now, but for the beginning of my career, it was all pain. It's like fucking drains on you.
Plus, let's be honest, it's way more stimulating to teach people who are going to be teaching. It's more stimulating for some more challenging.
Well, you can also impact a lot more people that way too.
And that's the goal, man, right? Because I think, again, like whether it's ignorance or whether it's like just malicious intent of making money, like what's been going out there, like I just see it so many times. Like I've been told like, oh, my PT or my personal trainer said I had like weak glutes, weak core, weak rotator cuff, and that's what sort of spiraled into my framework for my book, which is going to be like, or which is the 3 pillars or the 3 hubs of stability in your body. It's like no, it's in the language, man. Like, you don't have a weak core, you have an unstable core. You don't have a weak rotator cuff, you have an unstable shoulder. You don't have weak glutes, you have unstable hips. Right? Those are the difference, because it's in, people know how to get strong. Oh, you have weak biceps. Okay, we'll train muscle action. You like flex, relax, whatever. It's like that doesn't work with muscles that work around a helical axis, right? Like the rotator cuff works around a y-axis. Why does it need to exert force? It needs to resist force.
Connecting to it is one thing. Putting the work in to then build strength is another.
Yeah, so it's like, like bridging the gap from research doesn't mean like yellow TheraBand to blue TheraBand. Like, no, it means strength to stability. It's like being physically literate in the adaptations you're going to make, but holding even the most rooted, like weekend warrior, basic novice to the highest virtue and setting them on that path. Whether they get there, they want to be like, the strongest guy in the world or the fastest girl or whatever, that's fine. But it's like, don't make me have to like harsh reroute and rewire them because you set them down this false path from the gate, because all you were doing was chasing pain, right? Pain is easy. Pain has a natural history. Performance doesn't have a natural history. Like if you wake up after a flight and your neck kind of hurts, it's like give it 12 days, right? Natural history, you'll be fine. Go see a chiro, go see a PT, go see a massage therapist. You'll be good in like 4. But if you suck at lifting, 12 days later, you're still going to suck at lifting. Like you're not necessarily going to get stronger. You're not necessarily going to execute with better technique. So it's like setting the operative goal, setting the virtue to performance, regardless of pain. Because if you get to performance, you will not be in pain.
If you do it the right way, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the paradigm has led a lot of people astray, where it's like, okay, if I'm a therapist, if I'm a trainer, I'm a Mayo, whatever the fuck, it's like I just want to get people.
Well, that doesn't benefit their business model quite as much.
Exactly, right? It's like, and that's my thing. Is like I just want to teach people how to fish, man. Like I'm not giving them fish.
Yeah, the way we look at it is you have people who really understand how things work, really understand how to apply certain things. They know the information, they have the knowledge, and then you have this disconnect between that and being able to effectively communicate it, being able to get people to really believe and understand it. And that's what we try to do, is we try to bridge that gap a little bit. I mean, you definitely know what you're talking about, and you're communicating it to people to be able to teach it to other people. But if those people can't teach it to other people, this is what you learn working with just everyday people. Like, I know what to do to get you to lose weight, but if I can't get you to understand it, if I can't communicate it in a way that makes you understand how to change your behaviors and do it in a way that's going to give you long-term success, it doesn't matter. Makes no difference.
There's an artfulness to that.
I think so. How do you I mean, because you obviously are extremely fascinated by the human body and how it moves and functions. Are you diving into how the mind plays a role in that? In other words, how you think and how you feel about how you move. Do you look into that at all, or are you more just on the mechanics of everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my ability to extrapolate past like my core, like my fundamental, not beliefs, because I think belief opens up the conversation for interpretation. Like, is understanding that, okay, as I begin to push my boundaries and realize how multifactorial it is, maybe I don't understand what's kind of at the peripheral of my understanding, or like don't understand what the peripheral of my understanding, what lies at the jurisdiction of my knowledge or my skill set. It's like it would be pretty egotistical and naive to think that there's not a contributing factor coming elsewhere. So it's even at, I don't want to say my level, but to my depth and understanding is the hardest part is knowing what you don't know, right? But connecting yourself with people who do know, right? Like, okay, like you need to go see like a neuro, or you need to go see a nutritionist. So like beginning to familiarize myself, because like I've gone deep and not necessarily wide, but in going deep, I've learned strategies on how to learn. So it's like I now
That's a good point.
So yeah, just having a network of people who have gone to the depths in their subject matter.
What's that graph called where it's like you
the
think
Dunning-Kruger
there
effect.
You go. Yeah, it's very true. It's super true. But it's interesting because we just talked about this recently about I was reading this whole article on the placebo effect, and I find it so fascinating. They do studies with people where they'll give them fake surgeries. Have you read these studies?
Oh yeah.
They don't even do anything. They just cut the leg open and sew it back up, and the person has the same like pain relief as the people who did have the surgery.
Yeah.
Very strange.
But like it's perception is something that's very it's very open to interpretation, right? Like I think
literally.
Yeah. So I just think there's different ways to access that. Like that down regulation is a lock. And there's so many different keys that can turn that lock, right? So whether it's function, whether it's heat, whether it's biochemical, like there's so many things that can, if pain is the goal, like that's why I hold it as it's easy. Like it's easy if you know where to look for it, like how to downregulate that perception, because that's all it is. Like my uncle, if he eats red meat, his perception when he fucking sleepwalks, right? A piece of red meat, he's in his fucking Cherokee asleep behind the wheel, but he's driving. So
that's what red meat does to him?
Yeah. Yeah, like if he eats like Uncle Bry, like you got to hide the keys. If he's got a fucking ribeye, he's like going on the 401, but he's asleep. Like yeah, but it's like, okay, how fucking like whatever amino acid triggers whatever, there's a whole perceptual cascade that happened from one thing, right? Like it'd be naive to think that it's going to be as simple or as basic. Like we shouldn't trust our perceptions.
It's the deeper you go, the more you realize there's way more out there. You know what I'm saying? Because there's pain, and then there's your experience of pain. There's movement, and there's your experience of movement, and you can't separate them. It's all one. You can't separate them.
So I listened to a really good podcast with Russell Brand like years ago, and he made it, and I use it in my seminar. And it's like,
he gets on my nerves sometimes. Sometimes he says shit that I'm like, whoa.
He talks
I'm
like
like,
in a lot of circles.
Yeah, but he made this point about like spirituality, where it was like, he's like, my dog doesn't know the internet exists. And I was like, oh, fuck. It's about well, like,
did you smoke weed before this?
No, but it was just like it's about having the instruments to perceive the information, right? To gather the information. Right. So understanding that I am a very blunt instrument, so I might not have the capacities to fully understand how something works, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
No, that's very self-aware to even think like that, you know?
And I just think if you're outcome based, right? Like, because you talked earlier, and meditation has become such like a popular thing, and I hate to double back, but like, I look at like spirituality and religion as two almost like polarities, right? Like I know people who are very spiritual but wouldn't step foot into church, right? But it's like, and they argue, it's like, oh no, like you got to show up on Sunday, community, whatever, and then it's like, nah, like homie, I'm going to do me. It's like if you're about the outcome, it shouldn't really matter like how it is you find that, right? Because like people get on me like, oh bro, like you should really meditate. It's like I'm 2 hours in my own fucking head in the gym. Like that is meditate. And if it's the same outcome at the end of it, why do I need to sit cross-legged and fucking sing Kumbaya and that shit? You know what I mean?
Religion is the practice, I think, of spirituality. And you know, if you really want to know what people believe, don't listen to what they say they believe. Watch how they act.
Watch their actions. Yeah.
That's the truth. It's how people act. Like I could sit here and talk about how much I believe in good nutrition all day long, and then you watch me eat and you know that's bullshit. I could talk all about how I want to save the environment and I think we shouldn't, be burning fossil fuels, but I'm driving, a Hummer, or I own a yacht and all these other things like a lot of celebrities do. It's all about your actions, and that's really what shows what you believe, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just like the indoctrination of these new ideas, like this meditation thing is like, oh, everyone's got to meditate. It's the second everyone has to do something, you've lost me.
No. And you're seeing the rise of this psychedelic culture now, where my favorite quote is Carl Jung, where he says, beware of unearned wisdom. So you've got all these, it's like imagine putting a 12-year-old skinny kid instantly in your body. Is he going to have your wisdom of how to lift? Yeah, he's a big, strong guy all of a sudden, but is he going to be big and strong in the gym?
Well, I love how you use that example, right? Like it's about fanning a flame. It's cognitive enhancement, right? There's no doubt on that. Like I've played around the last 6 months. We'll talk off air, but like I don't like perpetuating it over podcasts. But I like in undergrad I took Adderall, and I've taken some crazier shit since then. But it's about like,
because I drank coffee once.
Yeah, right. But it's like I look at it like PEDs, right? Like It's about a base. Like I know kids who didn't touch gear until they were like 260 with abs. You look the fuck out. Like you throw 10 mils of Tren at this kid, boom, he's blowing up. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, you've built a base in your body to fan a flame, and it only takes a little bit of gear for that enhancement to happen. It's the same thing mentally, man. Like if you haven't read and bolstered your skill set and like had experience and traveled and been able to interpret different situations and surrounded yourself with different ideas and thought process, been open and learned and grown like from a mental standpoint, it's like you're fanning a really low flame.
Think about this for a second. Think about if you could take a 12-year-old 100-pound kid and snap your fingers and all of a sudden put him in your body and put him in the gym. What do you think he would do to himself in less than 30 minutes?
Hurt himself.
Injure the fuck out of himself. do something absolutely terrible, completely lacking the wisdom that it took to get you to this particular point, even though it's the same end or whatever. It's that unearned wisdom. Beware of it.
Yeah.
I think that's that applies to everything. But I do think what you're doing is extremely important because, like I brought up those placebo effect studies, when they do the fake surgery, the placebo effect is far more powerful because people have something tangible to kind of believe. I think that's the other reason why it's so effective to understand these things from a Western standpoint, understand biomechanics, understand movement, understand what I'm doing. It's more likely to also improve the way you perceive and experience it as well.
And I think that speaks to like educating the end user, right? Like, you don't need to cut that guy. You don't need to cut him at all. You need to basically tell him, like, without telling him that it's in his own head. Because if that's the thing, like, if
he has to get to that point to understand that.
But a lot of people, it takes, so it's about the severity of the intervention, right? Like, have you seen the bioavailability of, like, I think it's ibuprofen, where it's like they take the same bioavailability, but they scale how they give the intervention. It's like one is there's a difference between reported benefit between a tab and a capsule. And then there's a difference between a liquid and an injection. So like the injection people think it's the same fucking thing. At the cellular level, the exact same thing's happening at the same dose. It's scaled relative to body weight, everything. But because you're getting the fucking shot in the arm, you're like, oh shit, this is the real deal. And then, but the person getting like, oh, well, I just get like a little pill. Like I take like 100 of these a day. What's this one going to be different? So
that's the same reason why Advil literally came out with liquid caps.
Really?
They came out. You have the tablets, and then you have it's in liquid form. Gets to your shit. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
That's incredible.
It's because, but consumers think it's more effective. They buy it and they sell it.
You know what's funny? I did. I was on Shrug Collective and with Doug and Anders in New York, and Doug brought up the funniest thing where it was like, the most impactful sales line of all time was if you have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours. It's like, sign me up. Yeah. Sign me up. Sounds good. 4 hours? Are you serious? It's like, I'm not calling a doctor.
Dude,
I'm calling the wife.
It's
like what the fuck?
It's like selling
we gotta use this thing.
It's like selling a muscle builder. Like, look, this is a very effective muscle builder. Listen, if you build more than 10 pounds in 2 days, stop taking this immediately.
You
will sell
your doctor.
all the bottles.
Do you guys ever remember Nano Vapor, that muscle tech thing?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember what was on their fucking container? Where it's like, if you left they told you to not leave the container open for like, because all the drugs are coming out. But like, you better fucking believe that container was closed in 10 seconds flat when I was like 14 years old. It was like, quick, you ready, man? It was like Mel Gibson pulling Donald Glover off the toilet in like that Lethal Weapon movie. It's like, hey, we're going like on 3, like 1, 2, then 3. Like, you got the scoop, right? Like, are you ready?
Lethal One reference right there, bro.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh my god,
that's such a good one.
That is a throwback.
Did you?
Right
Were you? You're a lot younger than I. But I think when you were younger, was ephedra still on the market? Were you taking ephedra pre-workout?
I've done that. Yeah. Okay. Crazy, dude. When I was in Lebanon, sitting around like the locker room before we were training. Like, I knew a couple of guys. I didn't know all of them, and it's like, drugs are legal. Yeah. Like, we literally went into a pharmacy at 12:30 at night just because I didn't believe them, and they bought test over the counter at 12:30 at night.
Wow.
And I was like, holy fuck, this is insane. So sitting around the locker room.
So it's fully legal to buy anabolics over there. Oh wow. But it's illegal to probably drink alcohol, I'm assuming.
No, Lebanon's cool.
Okay.
Lebanon's like, it's Middle East light, man.
Okay.
Like I'm telling you, it's a party town.
Okay.
But like, literally, I was sitting in this gym, and like, whatever. Yeah, I've been around needles before, and so I kind of know the go. If pre-workout, it's like, all right, someone's running Slim, someone's running Growth, whatever. And I know like the usual sites that these things are going. So there's, it's a party, right? And some guy grabs a fucking knee wrap and then tourniquets his arm. And I was like, what you doing? What you doing, Ray Charles? Like, what the fuck? Fucking goes IV with it.
What?
Ephedrine, mainline. I'm like, dude, you're not going to be okay for a long time. It was like Requiem for a Dream, or like one of those Jason Statham like crank movies. You could just see the eyes.
That's basically Speed.
It was
basically did Speed.
Incredible. It was just like, you watch him, it's like his eyes are sweating. His literal eyeballs are sweating. And it was just like, yeah, whatever. No big deal.
Wow.
Just like pre-workout ephedrine straight to
I've
the
seen
main
a lot
line.
of shit I'd never seen.
That was, like I've been around the block, but that one was like, okay, that's like, it's 911 here, right? That's the number in Lebanon. All right, just I got 911. You let me know when you want me to pull the trigger. Yeah, it was crazy.
Are they jacked or what?
No. It was the weirdest thing. It's like, guys,
you're on all kinds of shit.
What are you doing? Pfizer test over the counter.
It's no different than over here.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know what I'm saying? You walk in I tell people this all the time. You would not believe how many people in your average 24-hour fitness or Golds is on gear.
Oh, if you don't train right, you don't got good diet, and of course, if you got shitty genetics, it ain't gonna. I mean, I had a guy who I bring him up all the time. Poor guy, but he used to work for me. And this guy was on like 2-3 grams of gear every week, and he looked like a fucking normal dude. It was crazy. He lost his hair. That's what happened. He got all the side effects. Built none of the muscle.
Brutal.
Yeah, it was really like I go into like American Barbell and Campbell, and like I just sit there. It's like you fuck the golden snitch. Let me do it. Like him. You, sweetheart, you come here. You're definitely on drugs. Like that's the easiest thing. Like
it
when
is.
you know it, it's like a mile away.
No. There's a lot of people, and a lot of people just don't do it right, man. You know, before we got on air, we were talking. This was before Sal even got there, and I was asking you some personal questions, and you said that you hadn't talked about it on air, but you said you'd be open to talking about it on air. And I wanted you to share your first homosexual experience that you
yes. Well, the good thing it was Sal didn't have to be there because Sal was there.
Right. No, what
I'm the giver.
What we were talking about is you're in the middle of a major life-changing moment for yourself, and you seem to be keeping yourself composed and handling it. And I would like to talk a little bit about it, and mainly because, not to put you on Front Street, but because I think you are a very self-aware person, and I think there's obviously some things that you've probably learned about yourself from this whole situation, and something that probably somebody who's listening can learn from you, maybe some mistakes that you made or things that you had done differently. Maybe you can touch a little bit on what you're going through and how that's been.
So I mean, I'm out of the Bay Area in 2 weeks. Gone. Like, packing up, just life ahead, not a thing anymore. You got to have something you gotta have something pulling you out, right? Like you gotta have, I think a lot of people, they find comfort in complacency, and they get scared to sort of step out and pursue things. So whether that's like a relationship or whether that's a job or something like that. I sort of made, having an ability to make decisions devoid of emotion, I think is something that I've been working on the last couple of years. And like, that's a skill set that regardless of like emoting about a problem is not fixing a problem. So I think you can cry and you can do all that, which is fine. Like there's a place, there's a time and a place for that, but like it doesn't actually solve issues. So just kind of something I've adapted in being, I don't even like the word entrepreneur anymore because I think that has a negative connotation, but in like having to make business decisions and having to make life decisions, having to make relationship decisions being the more pertinent one that we're sort of touching on now. It's like being able to look past like the discomfort and like delayed gratification and like being able to make decisions devoid of emotion. Like, yeah, it's been a really shitty, in some ways, a really shitty 6 months, like sleeping on the fucking floor. There was no Instagram post on that. There was no fucking high res video that my guy cut up of me fucking dry heaving from fatigue because I was sleeping on fucking linoleum for the better part of a month.
Right.
So it's something too that I don't put out there because I feel like there's even a marketplace now for like marketing psychosis. You know 100%. What I mean? Like there was Mental Health Day a couple months ago, and like the irony of like going through your Instagram stories, it's like, well, you have a personality disorder. You're on this drug, and this drug for your anxiety, but your means of dealing with it is the exact same thing that's giving you all this anxiety, like going on social media. So I don't talk about the personal life often when it comes to that, but I think putting a spin of like responsibility, like it's on you, have something that's like worth pursuing, and like if it's worth pursuing, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing in my opinion, like being passionate about it. But I think people conflate compassion and emotion, like being disciplined to do what's necessary, right? Like think about training, right? A lot of people are like, well, I'll do what it takes. It's like, will you take a week off? Will you take a week off training? You're like, no, like, oh, hashtag no days off. It's like, you're not in it. You're not, you think you're passionate, but you're just emoting about something. Like there's just, you're not, in a lot of ways, successful people, in my opinion, are dispassionate. Like if you look at Belichick, like, you know, it's a fucking low scoring game. And he's not like, oh, let's go. Like, oh, it's like, it's kind of stupid, right? Like being able to look long-term and like, in this case, like what's best for both of us in that situation, and like being able to make decisions devoid of emotion, and like feel what you have to feel, sure, but like whether it's business or whether it's relationship, being able to make decisions independent to that for what's best for the company, best for the relationship, what's best for the individual. That's something that you really can only learn if you force that on yourself, and most people like aren't willing to have that conversation.
Right.
And it's a tough conversation.
It's hard, man. I went through a divorce, about, was it 3-4 years ago, and you kind of have to get to that point, but it's not easy. At what point did you get to that point where you could take a step back and separate the emotion and the fear and the attachment and say, okay, this is just what needs to happen?
I think for me, I'm lucky in the sense that like what I do, like what I love to do actually makes me money. So I think it might be harder advice to take for people who just have like a regular 9 to 5, like to have an anchor that's independent to that. Like I'll never, might sound like morose, but like I don't ever want my passion to be about another person or my happiness dependent on another person, or maybe better yet, my fulfillment to come from another person. Like happiness is, it's cool, sure, but like I think doing something that fulfills you long term is really what people should strive for. So I think having that as an operative goal long term really made the decision easy, where it's like it's kind of like how I've been in everything. It's like if I'm doing a meet, nothing gets in my way. Like if I want to travel for work and present and I want to build my career, and like I have a very clear focus on what it is I want to do in 5 years, in 10 years, that makes the decision process easier. And that makes that makes the pulling the emotion part out of it. It's like if anything stands in the way of this, as like cold as that might sound.
Now, do you come from the camp that everything has happened for a reason, and because you guys were together for a long time too, and was that all meant to be, and you guys will go separate ways, and you're happy for the time that you did spend together? Or do you come from the camp that you look back and you go like, I probably should have never been with this person?
No, because I think like it's very much a butterfly effect, right? Actually, someone I've been reading a lot of lately is Sam Harris, and he talks about free will a lot, and like the facade of free will. Like basically everything happens for a reason, from like a biochemical, neurochemical, like cellular level.
He's like the most spiritual atheist of all time.
Yeah, but it's unbelievable to have such a fine point on it that's tangible, right? So like, no, because if you're happy with where you're at, you can't regret what got you there, is sort of like an overarching theme with anything that I've done. Like it's like we were talking about Ryan Holiday before, like if you read Obstacles Away, like that it's about how you frame it, right? Like, because you're going to learn the lesson whether you like it or not. So it's like you might as well embrace that as a positive and learn from it. So I think people who do that, like who like oh, that was like a waste of time or whatever, like nonsense like that, aren't appreciative of what they learned, or they didn't open themselves up to learn from the experience at all. So no, it's definitely.
Do you get afraid that you're because you're so calm and level-headed about things, do you feel like something's going to come out, or did it come out and now you know what I'm saying? Do you ever get afraid like you bury things?
No.
And I'm not saying that you do, because here's the thing. We don't see what happens behind closed doors, and I'm not one to show that to other people either. But behind closed doors, you can have your own breakdown, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I'm so busy that it's coming, but like I go looking for it, because there's almost like a social pressure in that situation. Like, again, this is like a conversation I've divulged with.
Start hugging you. It's okay.
Yeah, well, it's just like,
not
it's
your
okay.
fault.
It's not your fault.
You watch enough movies and you're like, there should be an emotion there, but it's like, I think if you just understand, like for me, it's about like, and watch me have a fucking breakdown in the car after this or some shit, but it's just like
fucking mind pump guys.
Yeah, they just see right to the core of me. No, but I think like, again, like
that song always gets me.
I just think like I'm lucky in the situation. I think, I don't want to say unique, but again, what I do for work, like again, wakes me up in the middle of the night, just makes my hair stand on end. Like I'm willing to, and not even sacrifice, because it's like, I don't know what else I would do. Like from like I like presenting more than I enjoy lifting, and I'll skip my birthday, I'll skip my mom's birthday, I'll skip Jesus's birthday to lift. Like I don't care. And this is holding like a higher order to that. And it's not like some profound fucking shaman shit or anything like that. It's like, I just like getting in a room and I like talking to people about the thing that I've dedicated the better part of the last 13 years of my life to. So like having that as sort of a carrot to chase, like it's not fleeting in the sense that I don't think about it, but if knowing that got taken away as a consequence of not making the decision that we came to, then that would be.
You guys are amicable?
Oh yeah, 100%, man, for sure.
That's the way to do it. I mean, when I get really sad is when I see people separate, especially when they have children. You guys don't have kids, but especially when they have children, where it's like, listen, we can do this in a way and not make it worse. It's already hard, but let's not make it worse. Let's work together to make this as cool as possible and be understanding of each other, because it's for sure you can make it way worse than it is now, for sure. Can we make it better? Can we make it so that things work out well? And it sounds like you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and there's no need to add insult to injury, right? And I think the worst thing, like, I can hate people. Like, I'm really good at hating people. I never want to resent someone. And I think there's a difference there where that if that's the path you're headed on, it's like that needs to be
and it
needs
just
to
lives
be taken
inside
care.
you.
Yeah, like hate is like, I don't know, maybe hate's a strong word or whatever, but like it has no effect on my life. Like there are people who it doesn't occupy my time, but resentment is like that's a really dangerous place to operate from. So it's like if that's where you think you're headed, I think that's a very like big not red flag, but a sign that like a light on the dashboard that says sort of check the engine. Because like I've seen that in my friends' parents where you can tell it's like I literally have friends who their parents sleep in separate bedrooms. Yeah, it's like well, to what end? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like we kind of touched on that before. It's like who are you think you're helping in this situation?
Right. Do you come from are your parents still together? Or they are.
Yeah, I've never seen my parents have fight ever.
So how was it tough to tell your parents? Because I come from a very traditional family. We had in my whole family, I'm talking hundreds of people, one divorce. So telling my family I was going through a divorce, that was almost as hard as telling my kids. Did you have a tough time telling your parents? Were they were good?
No.
Now were they like, we knew that would happen?
No. They were definitely taken aback. But like my parents are like they're the Mick to my Rocky. You know what I mean? They're in my fucking corner since Jump Street. Like whatever it is because like I've done some really dumb shit. And like there's been some like, hey, come pick up your son phone calls at like 3:30 in the morning. Like they've seen me. I was on a cruise ship when I was 15 and like I got dragged back to my room in a wheelchair. Like my mom has seen me through. Like I was fucked out of my mind. Like that's why I stopped drinking when I was 18. Like I haven't dropped alcohol in almost 11 years. Oh, wow. But it's like my mom is like, as long as I'm alive, it doesn't matter. Like we'll get through it, we'll get over it. Like I've never really had like if you have that sort of safety net, like you don't really ever have problems.
Sure.
Ever. Like and that allows me to operate with a fair amount of like free will because it's like, well, worst case, I can always go back and live with the parents. I mean, I won't live with my parents because like having that freedom allows you to take risks that you don't necessarily, or you might not necessarily would have taken without that safety net. But no, they were like, there was no outward showing of like, I'm sure after close there was like, man, this fucking kid's going to die alone. You idiot. Like, what are you thinking? But like, when they talk to me one-on-one, like I've always been not the black sheep, but I mean, my sister is she's a physician and she's like a real doctor with like a real life and no Instagram account. So, and her husband is like wildly successful. My sister swam NCAA. She went to Olympic trials for Team Canada.
Oh, wow.
Like, so here I am, like fucking bar fighting hockey player. Like, wait, you're just going to chiropractic college? So you're playing like a fake doctor on the internet? Like, oh, okay. So like my parents are used to me kind of like taking the road less desired or less traveled. So yeah, no, they're totally cool with it.
That's good, man. So now you're just traveling.
Yeah. I'm going to pause this right now. Doug, I want you to pause and let's do it right now. Let's call him right now. So I've been texting back and forth with Ben Greenfield ever since he did the tweet the other day about vaccines. I was just blown away that he put a statement out there like that vaccines cause autism. And there's been an absolute shitstorm on Twitter. And I've been telling him, hey, I'm going to give you a call because I want to talk to you about this. And he just now texted me right now. So I want to call him, Doug, and let's get him on the phone real quick. Let's talk.
Hello?
Yo, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have any?
I can hear your tiny little high-pitched voices.
Are you? What are you wearing right now?
You shine the red light on your balls right now? Have you interrupt you?
I'm dressed in a bunch of camouflage and giant winter gloves because I'm out shoveling snow off the truck and trying to clear a lane to sight in my bow here.
I hear coffee over your ass will keep you warm.
I've got we got a bow shooting competition on Saturday, so I'm trying to. We've got just tons of snow here, and so I'm digging through the snow, trying to create a line to be able to shoot 50 yards out here in the yard.
So I don't want to waste too much of your time because I know you're a busy guy. We tried to connect yesterday, and I know you had a bunch of people over at the house, and we're busy, and I'm only got you for a few minutes. But I saw the shitstorm that you're causing on Twitter right now, and I gotta hear one, why you did it and where that came from, and what's the deal with the vaccines tweet.
All right. Well, look, I mean, any time that you post something like that causes some kind of cognitive dissonance that results in many people have never heard that view before, being jarred out of a viewpoint that they just held almost religiously and dogmatically as a fundamental truth. People have every right to become upset. That's human nature, right? And so when I post on Twitter that I'm not entirely convinced that vaccines are healthy, and I actually think that in some cases they can cause some issues, primarily immune-based issues, right? Because you get this huge activation of the the humoral immune response without an opportunity for the innate immune response to kick into action, and that's really not the way that a human baby or a human child or a human adult is supposed to encounter an antigen. And so it can create some health issues, and I'm not convinced that those health issues are exceeded by the benefits of the vaccinations themselves. And of course, we could be on this call for a very long time going into the fact that when vaccinations arose, society was very filthy, people were dying, medicine hadn't progressed that far. And even prior to vaccines being introduced, we were beginning to see a reduction in a lot of these diseases due to the emergence of cleanliness and hygiene and medicine. But, unfortunately, at the time the vaccines came about, they were effective against some things like smallpox, for example, being the most famous. And so they wound up becoming quite popular and mandated in many situations. And that kind of relates to why I sent that tweet, is because in Washington State right now, they're trying to, based on an outbreak of measles, a rash that up until 100 years ago, kids would just get a rash, the same way I got chicken pox when I was 10 years old, and you let it run its course and you're sick for a little while, and then your immune system builds up its own innate and humoral responses and be able to fight off diseases like that more readily in the future. And so Washington State's trying to get rid of the ability for a parent, based on personal or philosophical exemptions, basically what's called it's an exemption. The ability to be able to say, hey, well, I decided that I don't want to get the vaccine. I've looked at the research and feel like maybe it's going to do more harm than good to my child. But Washington State is trying to get rid of that right for the parents and instead just require vaccines to become mandatory. And I get the logic to a certain extent, right? You get a whole bunch of kids with measles at school. It spreads. Some kids, potentially those with a weaker immune system, they might actually become very sick and even need to be hospitalized. And that's certainly a risk. It's a risk that could be overcome by, say, keeping your child home from school and giving them bone broth and plenty of vitamins and all the things that we know to be able to support the immune system. But ultimately, in watching what was happening in Washington State, and me being the libertarian that I am, I posted a couple of comments about measles and the fact that I don't think that the vaccine should be required, and that I even feel that vaccines in some cases are linked to things like autism. And of course, as you guys saw, shit hit the fan. And,
I think we all agree with you that I don't think we think anything should be forced or mandated by the government. I think we're all on the same page with those views. But you didn't just say that. I mean, you said vaccines do indeed cause autism. I mean, you just straight triggered.
They're triggered the jugular.
they're not the sole cause of autism. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying.
No, and I don't think you
Yeah.
mean that either. But even just to say that in this climate right now is a dangerous thing. I mean, we had alluded to that maybe a year or two ago, that there's possibilities of that, and we took on a shitstorm just for alluding to the possibility of that. It could be a possibility, and so we had to even bring on an expert in the field to talk to them and share their point of view. And they kind of came the other direction and said that it's all that's been disproven. Now, do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree that the link between vaccines and autism has been disproven. And this kind of course, could result in a 2-hour-long conversation, or I could direct you to, for example, our friend Paul Check's recent interview with Sherry Tenpenny, in which they delve into this issue for about 3 hours. Well worth a listen for your
Check it
audience.
out.
Yep.
Or even, thumbing through Sherry Tenpenny's book, which I appreciate, because every single statement you can go find good research on. You can go to PubMed yourself. You can go to the CDC's website. You can go to all these different sources from her book. Probably the top two sources would be her book or the book Dissolving Illusions, both written from a very kind of non-dogmatic, research-based standpoint. And that's what I appreciate about books like that, to be able to go dig into the issue yourself. And so the resources exist out there to be able to learn more about this. But man, I was actually shocked myself at the vitriolic nature of the comments that I received back. I mean, when I open my Twitter message inbox right now, it is basically baby killer, murderer. I hope you die of polio. I hope you die of measles. I hope you die of smallpox. I hope your children die of measles. I hope your children die of smallpox. I hope your children die, and literally hundreds of extremely vitriolic hate spewing into my Twitter inbox.
It's become politicized. That's why it's a new political wedge issue that they're using to get people to pick sides, and so now, and that's why it's that way. And fuck those people. Who owns the state? Doesn't own your kids. I don't care if I agree or disagree with you. At the end of the day, the government having the authority to force you to inject something into your own children, I'm sorry, but that's more than a slippery slope, in my opinion. And so,
right, and granted, can the government then say, well, we own the public schools. If your child is not vaccinated, we're not going to allow them into the school. Well, fine. Okay.
Sure.
I got to deal with the consequences of my decision, and I'm not able to send my child to a school potentially that I'm paying taxes to support because I've made a personal decision, and because that might put other children at risk or at least make parents feel uncomfortable. I get it. And I'll eat those words. I already told multiple people that, we used to homeschool our kids. They go to private school now. If these Washington State laws require that for the private school my children attend, I'm not able to pass a vaccination on them based on religious, personal, or philosophical exemptions. I will bite the bullet, and it's going to be a pain in the ass, but I'll start homeschooling because I'll stand by my words, and I'm not going to force other parents to have to deal with something that I've said. If they're uncomfortable with my kids being at school around them, like I'll take care of that. I'll be a responsible man and just basically roll with the punches. But the idea here, big picture is, and I even asked, Jack, the CEO of Twitter, and I are acquaintances, and I asked him. I said, you think I should delete the tweet? And his recommendation was that, in most cases, it's not a tweet deletion, but sometimes a tweet clarification that might need to be made, which I did. I posted 4 solid resources for people, the exact resources I used to educate myself on this issue: the movie Vax, the docuseries on vaccines, the book Dissolving Illusions, and Sherry Tenpenny's book about vaccines. And then, I just basically sent that one clarifying tweet and steered clear of engaging in any of the other kind of vitriolic discussions that were on there. But you know what? We live in a society where if you're trying to impress the world, if you are trying to be the person that the world wants you to be, you're going to be another sheep. You're going to be another lemming. And ultimately, if you say something and receive hate for it, and then pull back on what you said or delete it because of the hate that you're getting. All you're doing is weakening and diluting anything that you might say in the future, because it shows that you really don't stand by your words, that you're instead just going to bend to the whims of whatever the rest of the world wants you to say because you want to be accepted. And in my opinion, this is the same way I'm raising my boys. If you want to be a strong man, if you want to be respected, if you say something, no matter how much hate or grief you get for it, if it's true and you believe it in your core to be true, you stand by your words, even if it means you're going to take a lot of shit for it.
Fucking love you, Ben.
Yeah.
I respect that, brother.
I respect that. Thanks for coming on, man.
All right, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to get back into the snow here.
Yeah,
All right,
you
brother.
too.
Stay
We'll
away from Twitter.
We'll catch up later, brother.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Later. See you on the tweet.
Late.
Bye.
You know, I one of the things I love about that guy, and it's probably how he wrapped that all up. You know, at the beginning he was kind of digging himself into a deeper grave, I thought, with his statements and stuff, and he did come out really strong. But I mean, he brings up an incredible point. I agree with. I think we all agree with that. I don't think that the government should intervene on.
Should force it. Here's the problem. The problem is the argument. And the argument is being, are vaccines perfectly safe, or do vaccines cause things like autism? I don't think that's the necessary argument. You can talk about those things and discuss them, but the real argument is, fine, should the government have the authority to force you to inject whatever they deem to be good into your children? It's just like when they had the gay marriage debate. Should we let gay people? The argument was, why are we getting a license from the government to get married? Like, that should be the argument. Like, well, that's strange. It's a strange thing. I think it's a strange thing that we allow the government to have the authority to literally inject into. And by the way, this is the same government. I'm just talking for the U.S. government. I don't know what the Canadian government's done, but I'll tell you something. What the U.S. government's done. They've injected people with syphilis. They've sprayed people on fucking cities to test shit on them. They've taken prisoners and given them LSD to see what it does to them, and done all kinds of weird shit. I just don't trust anybody. Sorry, I don't trust any, especially when they tell me, if you don't do this, I'm going to throw you in jail. Sorry.
That same government has orchestrated 2 world wars to our favor.
I'm not saying they're 100% bad, but
I'm saying you got to take the good with the bad,
wow.
right? Like, I think every time there's a fucking Black Hawk that lights someone up that would be in your fucking living room otherwise, you fucking hit your knees. And this is coming from, I'm from Canada, right? But I was raised like my dad. We got 3 canoes and a fucking tank. That's it. But it's like my dad will give up his fucking seat on a plane for an American soldier.
Yeah.
I was raised. He's like, we live a damn good life.
and that's not even the argument I'm making at all. My argument is what, especially this country, what it stands for is for liberty. That's what this country was founded on. I mean, our entire government, if you read how it was organized originally, the entire thing was not organized in a way to say this is what government can do or should do for you. It was these documents protect you from your government. They ensure your liberty, and it's a massive assault on liberty to give anybody who has the authority to legislate and to throw you into jail or to kill you, which the only legal entity that exists that can do that is the government. And you're going to give those same people the authority to say, we can do that to you, and we can do whatever we want to your kids, and if we decide it's right, then it doesn't matter. I'm not cool with that. I'm not 100% cool with that. So,
but it's not an a la carte menu, man. Like, you can't pick and choose. You can't cherry pick. I think that's a fundamental difference between, like, I don't want to say socialism, because I think socialism in this country has a negative connotation.
Please don't say
But like, listen, dude, I got hit by a fucking car in Santa Clara on my bicycle. I took a Chevy Suburban to the shoulder. My left labrum is a hood ornament for this chick's Chevy Suburban now. The first thing I remember when, like, regaining consciousness, bleeding in the street, trying not to get run over, was homeboy on the corner went, "Yo, bro, not are you okay? was, do you have health insurance? Where's the fucking humanity in that? Because he knew that if I didn't, he's not calling 911 because I'm better off getting run over. It would have cost me less to take a Delta flight, first class, mind you, from San Jose to Detroit, take an Uber Black across the border into my hometown of Windsor, Ontario, walk into a fucking hospital and get seen then, rather than 2.3 miles.
Are you using the fucking... You are not using the medical system as your argument right now, are you?
What do you mean?
Oh my god!
But it's like it's my idea that like why
you in the head right
so
now.
you could try,
Oh
but
my
trust
God.
me, your hospital bills would be really expensive. But it's like the idea.
Bro,
that,
I'm not gonna fight fair. Come on,
no,
dude.
well,
No,
it's
I don't
just-
want to. Here's the thing. That's. I mean, we can get into a discussion about socialism
Look at
versus free
Australia.
markets. We could do all that, but my argument at the end of the day, fundamentally, nobody should be able to tell. Look, who owns my body? Who owns my mind? I own these things. Nobody else does, and it's a very strange thing to give somebody else the power to force you to do to your body and your mind, or to throw you in jail for doing things that you do to your own body and your own mind.
But what
it's
about-
illegal for me to take a drug, but is it illegal for me to kill myself? And if you think taking a drug is killing myself, then what's the difference? If my kid, these are my children, and at the end of the day, there are fucked up parents that do stupid shit, that abuse their kids and put their kids on weird diets or neglect their children. I get that, but for the most part, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I trust parents with their kids way more than I trust government with our kids. Way more. History is on my side.
But
You
it's
look at-
rights versus responsibilities, man. Like if people are abdicating their responsibility and focusing only on their God-given right from the Constitution, it's like, okay, no, then there has to be an intervention.
Your
kid is a
responsibility-
loaded fucking gun. Walking into a school, because here's the thing, when he talked about these physiological changes, like that's Darwinism. This doesn't, like the attenuated like version of the virus that you're getting exposed to as a means, because if you think about the way vaccinations work, is that it is actually promoting an innate response. It's
That's
an
the whole way they
attenuated,
work, yeah.
but like if you remove that, okay, all right, what you're willing to sacrifice is generations. Like it'll happen. Like if we all turned a blind eye to peanut allergies and let a bunch of fucking people die. Like I fly international with nuts all the time, and I'm at 36,000 feet for like 7 hours. I'm like, fuck this guy. I don't know where he is. I'm gonna weed him out. I'm opening this fucking bag of peanuts. I'm starving. If we did that and we had a bunch of dead people on planes in a few generations. Yeah, sure. No more little announcement like, hey, guys, welcome to flight American Airlines flight to whatever the fuck, and it just really someone has a severe nut allergy today. Like, yeah, that all right. If you're willing and put yourself in the position where your kid's fucking dead,
Yeah,
right? Because
no.
that's generation. That's not going to happen. Like, well, it'll sort itself out.
At the end of the day, if it's a private school and the private school says we don't want kids that aren't vaccinated, that's totally within their right. Public schools owned by the state, I get that. If you own a business and you put a sign on your business and you say, hey, you can't walk in unless you're vaccinated, totally within your right. That's your private property. You have every right to do that. But the parents and people also have every right to say what goes in their own bodies. It's just the way it works. And this is what's the wonderful thing about liberty is it checks itself. My liberty is freedom constrained only by the liberty of others. That's it. Doesn't mean I'm free to do what the fuck I want. It means I'm free to do whatever I want so long as I don't infringe on other people's liberties.
So when your kid's in public, he's in a bubble. Or he could walk into a fucking Walmart, or like if someone gets fucking Ebola and they go right to the airport.
Well,
like
here's funny. This is what's funny. In Washington D.C., how many cases of measles did they have, Doug? Why don't you look at it? I think it was like 40 something cases of measles or something. It was definitely less than 100, and they called it a state of emergency.
Absolutely.
In that same period of time, do you know how many kids died of drowning in a pool or slipping on their skateboard or whatever?
Dude, this
Do
is
you know
turning
how-
into a Second Amendment argument.
Yeah.
Who knew? Like, maybe the right to bear arms was the right to wear fucking cut off T-shirts. Like fucking, you guys, it blows my mind when I live in this. Like, you guys look just like me. Why are you saying this shit? It doesn't make any. Like, you guys should all be purple.
Because my blood runs red, bro.
Oh my god! Like
And
you'd be on the boat throwing tea into the
53.
harbor.
Look
Fuck.
at 53 cases
Yeah,
of measles.
dude, do you
in
understand
the
how
whole
herd
state.
immunity works? Though?
Yeah, I do.
Because
Yeah,
53
I do.
goes to 100, and then every kid in Washington is dead.
Oh, whoa.
But that's how it works. Like, it's not a linear progression with this shit, right? Like, think of degrees of separation.
Okay, so here, I'm going to use that. I'm going to stretch your argument out a little bit. Okay, let's do this. Okay,
This is good for you.
no, this is good. Let's stretch that argument out. Okay, I know a place where food is provided for free, where all weapons are strictly regulated, where people are controlled. You have people looking out for your safety at every checkpoint. It's called prison, and I don't want to fucking live there. So here's the deal. I'd rather live in a free country where I run the risk of crazy shit happening than live under the heel of some fucking tyrannical government that's keeping me safe. Because throughout all of history, that's how they've sold it. Always. And it is a slippery slope. Look, we'll use England as an example, use Canada as an example. They're starting to regulate speech. Who determines what's hate speech? And where do you think that ends? Where's that going to go? You know what hate speech is? You know what hate speech was 200 years ago? It was people saying, or 400 or 500 years ago, it was people saying the king is tyrannical. That was hate speech back then. It was hate speech to say, I don't believe in Christianity, and people would kill you. I want shit to be free because so far, throughout all of history, that is what's brought us real prosperity, real equality, and I will never trade safety trade my liberty for the promise, the false promise of safety. And this right here looks to me like you got to be kidding me. Like, okay, fine. People some kids are getting measles. That's terrible. That sucks. You don't want to let kids go to certain schools. That's totally up to them. But the second the government knocks down their door, because that's where it's going to get. It's going to get to the point where someone like Ben is going to get fined or his kids will get taken away because he's not letting the government give them a vaccine.
He's not Alex fucking Jones. Like, no, read that as 53 kids died because of ISIS terrorist attack in Washington. And watch the fucking whirlybirds go up and watch us fucking carpet bomb the shit out of it, right? Like that if that happened, we'd be sitting here fucking firing off revolver rounds like fucking red, white, and blue, motherfucker.
Hell yeah.
But because it's measles and there's like this idea, like this ideal of like, you know, don't fucking tread on me, and then this idea of like protection from your own government, you frame it differently, but it's the same fucking thing, right? Like, and I don't
know if it is, but
so we're also discounting the fact that what if Ben is right? What if the woo-woo people that do believe that there may be some sort of correlation between these vaccines,
or just the amount of them, or that maybe they're not all created equal, because vaccines aren't all created
what
equal.
if?
But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Oh,
right?
I know. That's a whole other argument. Look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Okay, I want to be clear. I think vaccines are one of the single most greatest things that Western medicine has brought to the world. That's my personal belief. I don't think all vaccines are equal, though. Now, I'm not going to say which ones I think are better than others. I don't have enough information to discern that, but I have enough information to know that they're not all equal. There have been cases where vaccines have had to been recalled. There's been situations where there's been problems.
There's been romaine lettuce that has been recalled.
You're right.
Like,
all romaine lettuce isn't created equal either, right? So anyway, that's. But as far as this is concerned, look, here, the way I look at it, Ben wants to raise his kids a particular way. If the government says you can't take him to public schools, and if the private school says we can't let you in either, and he's saying I'm willing to homeschool him, fine. But if they get to the point where they're going to knock down his door and take his kids away, I'm going to be there, man. I'm going to be there holding a sign.
Well, they're a lot more likely to do that if you put it on fucking Twitter.
Somebody's got to do it.
He's not a pioneer. He's not sitting down on a fucking bus. He's not a fucking he's not a civil rights movement.
He's got a platform.
He's an influencer shoveling for an archery match in his fucking driveway. He's not Rosa fucking Parks. He's not I love the guy. I was blown away by his intellect. This blows me away at the level of disconnect. Like not a God complex, but at the same time, you're not an orator of our day, right? Like this is clearly driven, whether consciously or subconsciously, by us having this conversation. Yeah. The reverberation, any publicity is bad publicity. When fucking Nike ran that ad with Kaepernick, right? Did you see Bloomberg's report on that? Of like the net positive financial benefit of that?
No, I posted that.
Now, he's not fucking Nike, but I guarantee you to his social brand, the polarization in both directions will
I'm sure he weighed that out, and I wish we would have got into that more. Yeah.
But it's like, let's not make like a storm in a teacup here. Like, it's this.
Well, here, let me give you an example, okay? Let me give you an example right now. Let's say, I'm going to give you a crazy example. Let's have fun here. Let's say you have kids. And by the way, if you ever want to get people fucking riled up, just tell them what they have to do with their kids.
With their kids, yeah.
And that's one of the big things here. But let's say you had kids, and let's say you send them to school, and they're like, listen, we're gonna teach kids that sexual preference. That's there's nothing innate about it. It's learned. We're going to teach them just do all kinds of crazy stuff. Their gender is, and I'm touching some third rails here. I don't know where your stances are on that kind of stuff. But let's say you disagree with that, but they're like, no, this is the way it is, and if you don't teach your kids this way, we're going to have to take them away. Like, what do you do at that point? What if they have all the science to support them, but you believe against that? Or what if you're religious and they're saying religion is bad? Or what if they're religious and they're saying atheism is bad? And you're like, no, I want to raise my kids a particular way. Like, where do we draw the line where the government's can tell you what you can and can't do with your own kids? I understand not hurting them. I understand, not beating them. I understand all that shit. And like I said, there's a lot of terrible, terrible people out there. But here, this is something that's it's a preventative. You're not giving them something to cure something that they already have. It's a preventative, and they already have laws that say that they can't. They shouldn't go to public areas or public schools. And I get that. I think Ben gets that. Where do you draw the line?
I mean, when I was a kid, Pluto was still a planet, and they taught that vehemently to us in like the 4th grade, and then it became not.
What is it? It's not.
It's a dwarf planet. Oh. Yeah. Thank you very much, Neil deGrasse Tyson. But it's like it doesn't. My parents taught me how to be critical and taught me how to appraise things and taught me to make up my own fucking mind. Taught me how to learn.
But this is the government making up their mind for you.
But the government made up their mind that part of the curriculum that was Pluto was a planet, and it had no bearing on my life. It's like.
They're not injecting you with Pluto.
Yeah, but like, I think you're just like
Boom,
you're drawing false equivalence.
And we're done.
He's gonna pull a George Costanza. It's like, no. I think you're drawing a false equivalency there.
I did draw a false equivalence.
Hey, you know what's funny? I was watching Seinfeld last night, so I'm taking my girl through. She's never watched it.
Oh,
and it was the George.
You're welcome.
George Costanza talks about. So
you got to leave on a high note.
He's got a girlfriend at this time, and they are, and then he's got Elaine and Jerry and Kramer, and that's this, and he keeps them separate. He calls them separate worlds, and then Elaine starts hanging out with his girlfriend, and he's freaking out the whole time. My worlds are colliding.
Anyway, well, look, it's a heated discussion, and I really don't care. I just support people, standing up for themselves, and I'm on Ben's side. Not necessarily that vaccines cause autism, but that they shouldn't be able to force his kids. But whatever. Look, whatever. Let's talk about cool. Let's talk about light stuff now.
No, I wanted
to stir it up there for a minute.
Here's the thing for me. I mean, this is on my mind a lot right now. I mean, I've got I've got a baby boy around the corner that's coming in August, and I don't know where I stand on the whole vaccine thing. I mean, I've been reading. I've heard a million different people who have a million different arguments. I get brilliant people in the same room that debate it and disagree with each other. And so, someone like me, it puts me in a very hard decision on the man. Where will I draw the line, or will I let them inject my baby with 9 different things and be okay with it? Because I think that's the smarter thing to do. I don't know yet, man.
I think it just comes down to your dedication. Not maybe dedication's the wrong word, but like your dedication, for lack of a better word, to like the collective, right? To like the forwarding of humanity as a whole, like to be a part of like this idea of shared responsibility, I think is what's kind of on trial here, like the psychological phenomenon of shared responsibility.
So you're like, for the betterment of the evolution of human, we should all do it. And then if we find out in 5 years that it does cause autism and my kid gets fucked because of it, it's like, well, I still did the right thing because we had to figure it out sooner or later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I lost me here, but I think there's a sacrifice you have to make and have to be willing to make. And I think depending on your influence growing up.
I'm glad you said that, because that's actually a fundamental difference in how I think about things. The way I look at society is, if we want society to progress in the best way possible, then rather than focusing on everybody else and everything else, focus on ourselves, make ourselves the best versions we can possibly be, make ourselves good people, because in reality, that's really all you ever control. Because you do get a lot of people that stand on soapboxes that preach and tell people what to do, and here's what's better for you, and here's what's better for everybody else. But really, it's like, make your own bed, clean your own room, take care of yourself, make yourself the best person possible, and then we'll see what ends up happening. And it's really fundamentally the difference between a collectivist attitude and an attitude based on individuals. And society isn't... Society is a collection of individuals. That's all it is.
Yeah, but if your kid doesn't make his bed, my kid's made bed doesn't all of a sudden get unmade. Right? Like, that's again, I think...
Here's the deal. You have every right to keep your kid away from other kids, whoever you want. And if that ends up happening... So here's what I think would end up happening. If we go down this dystopian path, you'll end up having people buy property, and you have to have a mark on you that says you're vaccinated, and you can't come in here if you're not vaccinated. And And people would have that right. That would be within everybody's. I don't think it'll get there. I don't think that's. Again, I'm painting a dystopian future, but. Look, here's the deal. I'm less worried about kids getting vaccinated for measles than I am about bacteria that are fucking that are morphing right now that we're not going to be able to treat with antibiotics.
The way I look at it, so what you just said, I think is a great point, because the way I look at it is, let's look at both sides and look at the worst case scenario in both sides and which is worse there. If worst case scenario, this shit does potentially cause some of those things or could affect my kid. Or worst case scenario, we live in a world where people have dots on their wrist and you're allowed places and you're not allowed places. Which would I rather deal with? Well, I'd rather deal with that situation.
You'd rather deal with like a fucking Hunger Games District 12 shit than maybe a one-off aberration pandemic then wipes out and then it's problem solved. You'd rather death with that fragmented
Well, here's
society?
the deal. Of all the vaccines, which ones are the ones that are preventing death pandemics? Like measles, not a great thing to have, but it is up there with chickenpox. So that's not a pandemic that's going to kill people. Flu vaccine? I could see polio. That one's a little bit different. Smallpox, I could see something like that. So they're not all really.
So what if the government mandated, we went out and maybe we tweeted about it, let's say, the ones we thought were okay, and then the government went, okay, based off of your tweet, sir, or ma'am, whoever you might be with your opinion on the internet, and then would you be cool with that? If you had Sal's top 3 and you had a cool hashtag with it.
No, I don't trust anybody with the authority to force people to do anything with their bodies, including myself. I don't think anybody has or should have that authority. And here's the deal. Speaking of dystopian realities, the only true, real dystopian realities that have ever really existed were those where the government had a lot of fucking control. You go to Soviet Russia. There are people right now in China. There are Christians right now in China being persecuted. Muslims in China being persecuted. They have a system right now where you're walking around. They have artificial intelligence watching you and you can tell who you can hang around with, and if you hang around with this person, your social credit score goes down. Now you can't travel. They're just clamping down. That doesn't exist in free states. It doesn't exist in free societies, and they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But liberty is the only thing that's ever brought real equality to the small, to the individual, to women, to minorities. It's what lifted people from poverty. I would rather be poor in a free place than be fucking middle class in a communist country.
But you're not the only country with liberty. Australia went through full stops. Said, all right, you guys, no more guns. One fucking shooting and that was it. All right, you kids don't want to get vaccinated? Fuck it, they're not going to school.
No,
but it's a well developed, it's a flourishing economy.
It's definitely freer. It's definitely freer.
But this is the freest.
No, we're not. Not even. But we're not the freest either. But there's definitely a spectrum. But if you don't have those protections put in place, it becomes a slippery slope. There was a comedian in the UK that he got in big trouble. I believe he might have gotten thrown in jail, if not a huge fine, because he made YouTube videos because he taught his girlfriend's pug how to do the Hitler salute. This is no joke. He thought it would be funny if he taught this pug to do the Hitler salute and to react to some pretty terrible things. And some people thought it was funny, some people thought, but a lot of people got really offended. They actually persecuted this guy for a fucking joke. Now that's what happens when you don't have freedom of speech, which they don't have. In the U.S., we have certain protections that other countries don't have. One of them is the Second Amendment. And I'm going to tell you something about the Second Amendment. As imperfect as it is, it's the amendment that gives all the other ones teeth. How are you going to protect your freedom of anything if you don't have any threat of force or violence? And so that's why it exists.
I can't with the gun thing, man. No, dude, I flew into Vegas with the window still shot out in Mandalay Bay. I had a friend, close friend of mine, whose best friend died at that. That's a straw man argument. There's no way. You're not Japanese internment camps in the war. This is out of time. This is Old Testament shit. Time to rewrite, right? I think
the toothpaste is already out anyway, so it doesn't matter.
What's that?
The toothpaste is already out. There's no way you would.
Yeah, you know how many guns are circulating in the U.S. that aren't even registered? What are you going to do? We're at the point now where it's it's kind of a silly argument. I could see certain regulations and stuff like that.
Yeah, you would take it out of the hands of the right people, and the wrong people would still have it.
Oh, God. What would you just morph into Ted Nugent with colorful socks all of a sudden? Where the fuck am I? Alex Jones on one side, Ted Nugent on the other? Jesus.
Well, we just had to get your Canadian ass fucking feet together here, dude. Where are you going here, bro?
Unbelievable.
I didn't even know you're like Mr. Healthcare guy, vaccine.
Well,
I didn't even know
work
these
in
things.
the healthcare industry.
Yeah, which makes you biased. Fuck you. So
Well, yeah, like, yeah.
and we're heading down the dystopian way anyways. I've already been saying this. I think in our lifetime we're going to have the plugged and plugged in. I'll fucking have that argument all day with you. I think that we are heading, and it's right in front of us. It's going to happen sooner than later.
Anarchy is around the corner, and there's nothing that government's gonna be able to do about it. When you have 3D printers that you'll be able to print whatever the fuck you want for cheap, patents are obsolete. When you're gonna be able to print your own drugs, print your own guns. Good luck regulating anything, and it's just. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the direction it's going to go.
All right, well, I'm going to eat you first then, because I'm real prepared.
No, you won't, because you're bigger and stronger. But I got guns.
Gotta sleep sometime, man.
Anyway.
Dude, always.
I fucking love talking to you.
I do, dude. I'm gonna.
You're one of my favorite people.
You better not be a stranger, man.
No, I'll be back.
Yeah, you better come down here. Even if we got to fly your ass down here, you got to come down here and at least visit us, and we got to make our way up there. So you're gonna be on the road for at least almost a year, 10 months or so before you maybe settle down.
Yeah, man, 2 weeks.
Yeah, where next?
I go Tampa. All right, I got this down now. Because I need to make sure I have a roof over my head. So I go Tampa, Columbus, Miami, Tampa, DC, New York, Tampa, Bahamas, LA, Toronto, Victoria, San Diego, Whitby, Bradford, Toronto, and then it's June.
Is that an
July.
acronym or something?
July. Yeah,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And
a
then I got
maniac.
Winnipeg booked in October.
And how long is that for?
So that'll bring me to July. Me and Ben are looking at some European dates in Dubai, UK, Iceland, Rome. Where else?
God, I gotta jump in one of these trips, dude.
Oh, dude.
All right,
You ain't going anywhere, dude. You got to keep.
that's why I gotta do it now. I gotta do that now.
Too
Oh
late.
yeah, Katrina would be
it's too
stoked
late,
about
bro.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I gotta get my living in now. Sorry, sweetheart.
Yeah,
Good
right.
luck with the morning sickness.
No, well, fucking good luck, dude. You've always got our support. One of our absolute favorite people to talk to, and one of the lights in the industry. Really, one of the people speaking the truth about fitness and how to apply it properly, and of course, always open to discussion and debate. And I really appreciate that about you.
No, I mean you guys put this whole fucking thing on a tee for me. Like when I get stopped in gyms, it's like I heard you on Mind Pump. I saw you on Mind Pump. I heard you on Mind Pump.
Awesome.
So you guys rolled the dice on some punk ass kid. Like, what, dude? I was doing the math the other day. A guy literally came up to me yesterday, and I was like, he was talking about you, and he's like, "Oh, do you believe he's having a kid?" Like the level in which people are invested into what you guys are doing and the message you're spreading, and like talking about being a light in the industry, like. To engage at the level you have and build trust from like the fitness centric world that we all come in, and then branch out to like, hey, there's more to life than just inside the gym, and be able to do that with integrity, and be able to do that with the same critical thinking you applied to what kind of gave you guys your start. I think makes you guys really unique, and the impact you guys are having. Like, get out there. Like I want you guys to not fucking touch down for a year, because you'll see, like I see it firsthand, the level you guys have had at the level of the end user, the listener. Like, dude, I was at Gary Danko, like one of the spots in San Francisco,
I love that
right?
place.
What the sommelier was a huge Mind Pump fan.
Oh,
he
right.
recognized, so they go over the
wine.
reservation. No, they go over the reservations before every sitting, and be like, like who's coming in, like if you got presidents or diplomats or actors or whatever. Like it's a Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco.
Okay.
And the sommelier was like, I know that guy. And so like I walked in the door, and the guy had like 2 glasses of champagne ready for him. I was like, I look like a fucking boss.
That's
like one of
awesome.
the nicest restaurants in the world.
so awesome.
And because he heard me on Mind Pump, he drives from Sonoma to San Francisco every day to be a sommelier at Gary Danko, because it's a very prestigious position. And in that process of years of doing that, he found you guys, and he lost over 100 pounds with your advice.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Wow,
dude, we were almost in tears, man.
cool.
Like, I was literally like, I was with my wife at the time, and I'm just like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm fine,
That's
fine.
great.
But
That's
that's powerful shit, man.
No,
and like,
that's the stuff that gets me, man.
I
Appreciate
think
it,
you
man.
guys got to go out there and really see, like, I mean, I don't know how you do it with like traveling and all that, but really see the impact.
No,
you guys have.
we are actually. In fact, after this, I meet with Taylor about the first event he's got lined up for us. So the goal is for us to travel 7 places. We can't quite hang with what you're doing. That's crazy. But the goal is to get out there to 7 different locations this year. We did 4 last year, and we're trying to do that, man. I mean, everything that we've been building, it takes a lot of effort and work here, and so it is a lot of work for us to get out there. But man, the few times that we have.
We always
every time we've loved it.
Yeah,
the response we get is amazing.
We all talk about what a pain in the ass it is to do it, and it's not very beneficial financially. But then we all go, and then we realize how rewarding it is because we get a chance to actually meet and talk to those people. Man, It is important.
Yeah, the level of impact you guys have had on me. From that, dude, you and Craig are at fucking Yard House 6 years ago.
Right.
You were still
God,
like,
it's been 6 already?
Yeah, man. Wow. Like I was still like, I was just starting school. I was writing for
just
Craig.
A puppy, dude.
I remember you were like, who is this meathead? Like, I just remember like just like the bicep vein. I was like, man, yeah, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then from that to like the YouTube stuff we did, and then getting on the podcast, like. You've been equally as influential on me as the guy that lost 120 pounds, as the kid in the gym in Lebanon who comes up to me who's like, oh man, like I saw this and it got me into this. Like the domino effect that you guys have had, and you guys do not appreciate or do not give yourselves enough credit, or you aren't given enough credit for the actual power you guys yield, and you guys yield it responsibly and have such a benefit on so many people's lives. So I mean, hats off to you guys. And,
Stop it, dude! You're gonna make me all emotional here.
Right? No, I appreciate you guys.
No, keep going. I'm not done yet.
Is that why these chairs are so deep?
Right. Well, we love you, brother. Always a good time having you here.
I appreciate you guys having us.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.